catapults into the end zone. Welcome back, Christian McCaffrey.
Second and goal. Cole looking end zone. He throws. What a catch. It's touchdown.
Handoff Dalvin. Stutter steps. Bounces left. 3, 2, 1. Touchdown!
Getting you ready for NFL action with information, advice, and entertainment. The Gameday Playbook presented by FantasyAlarm.com on Bettor Sports Network.
What's going on, everybody? John Impemba here with Andrew Cooper. This is the Gameday Playbook Week 4. Coop, man, it has been a wild morning already. Not only do we have a morning show here kicking off at 9:30 with the game between the Vikings and the Saints, but we have a full day of slate to go on as well, man. How are we doing? It looks like maybe we lost Coop. Maybe Coop got a little bit of a disconnection there. Again, this is we got a lot to talk about here today. Again, but most importantly, we do have that matchup between the Vikings and the Saints this morning. With the biggest news coming down with Alvin Kamara being ruled out for this morning's game. That one's a little bit of a shocker there, especially with the fact that we're also with the Saints. No Jameis Winston. No Michael Thomas in this game as well. We're currently looking at this game here, and it was just a 3.5-point spread early that has since moved to the Saints getting 4.5 points there, over under of 41.5. So if you woke up this morning and you have Alvin Kamara in your lineup, you're going to have to go ahead and move him out. Maybe there's Mark Ingram available there. But, we're not really looking at much else in that backfield. Tony Jones Jr. didn't get much action in week 2 when Alvin Kamara was ruled out of that game there. So it's Mark Ingram or bust. We're also going to potentially looking at the fact that maybe Taysom Hill gets a little bit of a bigger role today. I know Taysom Hill is tight end eligible in a lot of fantasy leagues there. There was some speculation or at least maybe hope from fantasy players this week that Hill was going to be able to have a little bit of a bigger role, but Coop, now that you're back, let me ask you, do you think Taysom Hill now has a bigger role today with Alvin Kamara being ruled out as well, along with Michael Thomas?
I mean, I don't think so. Maybe slightly bigger. I'm not starting him on any planet, to be honest, because last time Alvin Kamara was out and he only played 6 snaps, got a couple carries. Like, there are better tight end options. He's not even the best tight end option on his own team. Right. Juwan Johnson is the best tight end option on that team. He's like running 76% of the routes, playing wide receiver 3/4 of the snaps. He is a converted wide receiver, right? And they're missing Michael Thomas. Start Juwan Johnson. I mean, if you're in a crazy deep league, maybe try crazy stuff like that or DFS showdown, but I'm not doing it, man.
I'm kind of in a full agreement with you there. Well, it feels like it just may not be worth put up there and risking the 0, right? That's kind of where I'm at with it. So full agreements with you on that. We'll see exactly what goes and happens with that situation there following today with the Saints and all their injuries. But like I said, if you have Alvin Kamara in your lineup this morning, you're going to want to obviously go ahead and get him out. Andy Dalton's the starting quarterback there for the Saints today. Again, no Michael Thomas. So Chris Olave, Traquan Smith had a big game last week. I don't know how much he's going to be involved in this offense today, but somebody's going to be stepping up and filling in for Michael Thomas's snap share. So, we know Smith and Callaway could be guys that end up filling out that role. Jarvis Landry, of course, and maybe one of your favorite sleeper tight ends, Juwan Johnson, gets a bigger look.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. He's played all the snaps, and it's without Michael Thomas, that's the perfect role for him to slide into because he runs those like medium A dot routes. I look at certain guys like Tyler Higbee, Tyler Conklin. These dudes are running like 3 to 4 yard routes. Not super appealing to me. This guy, Juwan Johnson, he's running 11-yard A dot routes. That's right next to Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce when you sort it by that data. Yeah. So I'm interested. I'm definitely putting him in at least a showdown slate. And I have him in real lineups, to be honest.
Yep. No, I'm with you there. And remember, we're going to be here with you guys all day today on the Bettor Sports Network covering all day football, basically, and after us, we have the pregame show with Front Yard Fantasy with Simon, Joey, and Joey L from 11 to 1, Better Zone from 1 to 5. with Corey, Adam, and Tom. And 5 to 8, we also have Better Zone Holding Kushner and Pilar Lastra as well. So a lot going on here at the Bettor Sports Network today. As always, full day Sunday coverage. But you got to get involved. You have to go ahead and download the Bettor Sports app from the App Store. You got to go ahead, sign up, join the show, get your questions in, sent to us here. And become part of what we're trying to do right at the Bettor Sports Network with the Game Day Playbook as well. Come on the show with Coop and I. Let us answer your fantasy questions. Get into the chat. Type your questions in. We're going to be going through each game. We're going to be breaking down each game today. We're going to be going through and answering your start-sit questions. So you got to get involved. You got to go to the App Store. You got to download the app and get part of the show with us. Coop, outside of injuries today, because there are a lot of them, what were you going to say? I saw you all ready to go. What do we got?
Well, I just want to let people know that this is how we're doing it today. And this is how we do it every day on here, is that we're going to go through each of these games, and we're going to take your questions, add them to the show sheet, and answer them as soon as they become relevant. We get a ton of questions here. That's the best way for us to go through this, is hit the games, and as soon as we get a game with your question in it, we're going to knock that out. So make sure you're staying tuned. Put your questions in the chat, and we're going to hit them. All right? And on top of that, there's one way to skip the queue and not have to wait. Call in. If you call in on the app, we'll put you on air. You can go on video or just call in, and we'll answer your question right away. A couple weeks ago, last week we were off. A couple weeks ago, we had a couple people call in, got their questions answered right away, got it locked up. The one exception this week, of course, is if you have any players in this 9:30 game, get those questions in right now, and we will hit them right away. All right?
Yeah. And I'll also say this. Use first names if you can. When you ask those questions, especially if you're in the chat. Obviously there are multiple players sometimes with the same last name. It's just easier for us if we get the full scope of names there. Not calling out anybody specifically. I'm just saying, it's easier for us to help you guys get the answer there. Coop, like I was about to say, not only is the big story the inactives for today, but the weather. You and I both live in the Northeast. Driving up here, it was windy as heck in Massachusetts. I know that there's been rain all up the East Coast, and rain is going to be impacting a couple of big games today in terms of fantasy. We have the Ravens versus the Bills today in Baltimore. We know that there's going to be rain and wind in the forecast in that game. We also know that the game with the Eagles in their matchup today against Jacksonville, supposed to be a lot of rain and a lot of wind. How much of a factor do you play in start-sit decisions when it comes to the weather? I mean, obviously, you're not sitting a Lamar Jackson. You're not sitting a Josh Allen. You're not sitting a Jalen Hurts. But do you consider sitting a Christian Kirk this week? Do you consider sitting a Rashad Bateman this week? Do you consider sitting any of those secondary wide receivers in games where it's supposed to be windy and rainy?
So for me, I usually just use that as a tiebreaker. The big exception being 20-mile-an-hour winds. We have data that shows anything over 20 miles an hour is hugely impactful. And of course, if it's torrential downpour, then that's a different story. But for the most part, the rain doesn't really have the effect that we think it does. It's the wind. So I'm keeping an eye on the, as you said, the Jags-Philly game right now. They're suggesting the winds could be 15 miles an hour. That's right at the cusp of where it matters. And then also the Ravens-Bills game looking at like 14 miles an hour right now. Unless it gets up to 20, I don't really make those moves. Like I'm not going to bench Stephon Diggs, obviously.
Right.
But, keep an eye on that. If you have two comparable players and you can, potentially pivot away from them in those situations, then maybe do so. But I'm not moving tiers based on
there's no obvious replacement for a Mark Andrews on your lineup or a Stephon Diggs in your lineup, obviously. But, someone like a Devonta Smith the last couple of weeks, and we've had questions in chat, and we'll get to them. One of them involves a game for this morning, so I'll just ask it to you right now. Devonta Smith, Chris Olave, and Christian Kirk, two of those guys we talked about are in games with weather. They need to pick two. Albert's wondering, how do you view a Devonta Smith and a Christian Kirk in games where I'm seeing right now winds can be 15 to 20 mile an hour with bursts and a steady rain throughout the game? Are you rolling with Smith or Kirk? We're obviously going to play Olave today, but if you had to pick one of those receivers in the weather game, which one are you rolling with?
I'm going with Christian Kirk, and it's kind of twofold for me. One is that he's been the focal point of that offense. Right. Whereas Devonta Smith, you don't know if it's going to be him or AJ Brown. I mean, we had a game where he didn't catch a single pass. Right. So I'm going with definitely starting Kirk and definitely starting Olave. The other reason is that Kirk runs shallower routes. He runs more intermediate routes, whereas Devonta Smith is their kind of de facto deep guy. Again, when it comes to weather, it punishes the guys that run the deeper routes more than the guys that run the underneath routes. So give me Kirk, give me Olave.
Yep. So that's something we're going to be doing today. Again, as we hit through these games, if you have questions, we're going to answer them. We have another one for this earlier game that's starting again at 9:30. So I just want to hit this now, Coop, because it's 20 minutes out from Saints Vikings starting off. Greg in the chat wants to know Mark Ingram, Travis Etienne, or Stevenson today.
Mark Ingram, Travis Etienne, or Stevenson. I'm starting
PPR.
So I'm starting Ramondre Stevenson, and the reason being that once we saw Ty Montgomery go down, Stevenson actually seemed to absorb that passing down role. When you look at what they did last week, they split the carries like they usually do between Ramondre and Damien Harris, but Stevenson played 28 pass plays to only 14 for Damien Harris. These other guys, Mark Ingram with Kamara out could be interesting, but ETN isn't playing nearly the role that Stevenson is. Now, John, what are you thinking? Would you go Mark Ingram or would you go Stevenson here?
I might go Mark Ingram. Again, he's going to get the workload. We know that in that offense here. And the fact that I think that Dalton is the quarterback, I also think they may go run heavy in this spot as well. So I may go in that direction. As good as Stevenson has obviously looked at times of the dual running back system that they have there, it has been Damien Harris that's been the guy the last couple of weeks as their primary running back in that offense. And I feel like if they're going to go into a game where they don't want Brian Hoyer throwing a bunch, it's going to be a Damien Harris show for the most of it, in my opinion, at least. And I feel like there's more guaranteed touches going Ingram's way. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. We have someone else in the chat here mentioning that Latavius Murray was elevated from the practice squad to their active roster for this morning. We've talked about in the past 2 weeks ago when they signed Latavius Murray, he wasn't activated. They left Tony Jones and Ingram as the two guys here. What do we think about going to Latavius Murray? Any interest?
Only in DFS. Yeah. As Tommy points out in the chat, get in the game, $200 in DFS. I mean, yeah, of course, in that situation, you throw him in there, but I can't go that direction. The one thing that does make him kind of interesting in DFS and the showdown slate is that he's obviously been part of that organization. He knows the plays. It's not like you're bringing some guy in off the streets here, like Jake Luton playing backup quarterback. He doesn't really, his plays would be basic, but this guy knows the plays. So you can mix him in there. It's just, obviously it's going to be the Mark Ingram show for the most part. And I'm with you, John, on the other call. Mark Ingram over Stevenson. The more I think about it, the way you laid it out there, I think it has to be Ingram.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm with it as well. Other injury news for today, quickly. Keenan Allen ruled out again for the Chargers. I talked about Myles Garrett earlier, the defense player for the Browns, slipping his car earlier this week. He's out. We mentioned Jameis Winston. Mac Jones is out. Brian Hoyer starting today. J.K. Dobbins is active. Wasn't even on the injury report, so hopefully we'll get more of a workload out of him here. Hunter Renfrow out for today, maybe another Mac Hollins day. Michael Gallup will be making his debut for Dallas today. We'll see how much action he gets. Dak Prescott not playing today, maybe next week for him, but another Cooper Rush week coming. Lions, DJ Chark was surprised out yesterday. Amon-Ra St. Brown and DeAndre Swift all ruled out for today as well. Josh Reynolds, TJ Hawkinson, Jamal Williams, Craig Reynolds, maybe even Cephas Jones, whatever, getting in and being of value to us there. So we have a lot more to get to. When Coop and I get back, we're going to break into those game previews. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get into your questions as well. This is the Game Day Playbook presented by Bettor Sports Network. We'll be right back.
The Playbook with Fensty and Ronis, presented by FantasyAlarm.com.
The only person, I've said this to you before, who I believe back then, of all those power hitters who truly was clean, Ken Griffey Jr.
I mean, I think so when he got hurt. We'll never know that for sure either.
Nah, dude.
We're not big, take substances.
That's true.
You get busted. So it's not about that always.
I hear you. It's just, don't you think with the way his career kind of went, you would think that he didn't take anything?
I don't think he did, but we'll never know 100%.
I'm going to keep telling myself that he didn't. The 1 year, I mean, he's my favorite baseball player of all time. In the 1990s, Ron, as a kid, as a 5-year-old kid who plays video games and collected cards, there was no one cooler than Ken Griffey Jr. I still wear my hat backwards because Ken Griffey Jr. did it and he looked really cool doing that. wearing a backwards baseball cap. Like, he made everything the guy did looked cool. Even the home run in the movie Little Big League, it's acting, it's all, I guess, fake, but even he made that look cool. I mean, Ken Griffey Jr., you're a little bit older than me, but in the 90s, was there besides Michael Jordan, was there a more loved athlete than Ken Griffey Jr.?
Yeah, no, I love Griffey. He's one of my favorite players ever, from defensively to hitting his swing. And yeah, I would have loved to see what he could have done if he had stayed healthy, the final numbers he'd finished with. So no, I was a huge fan of Ken Griffey, and it's a shame, though, that all those injuries towards the end of his career just really limited the production he put up, but he still put up elite numbers. He was so fun to watch. So I'm a huge Ken Griffey guy.
And here's the other thing, too. So 1994, the season got shortened because of the strike.
Yeah, he finished with 40 homers in 111 games that year, man. And then he had 56 2 years in a row, 97 and 98, and then 48. He had a stretch 4 years in a row, 49, 56, 56, 48, 40. I mean, unbelievable. And then, yeah, once he hit like 31, he started to miss games, 111, 70, 53, 83. So think about that, all those years that he lost, and he still hit 630 home runs, man. Yeah. So if he was clean, he would have been the all-time home run champion. Again, we're all guessing here, but you would think, all right, well, once he got into age 31, 32, that's when the body started breaking out, which is typical, right, for someone who's not using anything, whereas we saw Barry Bonds just get better with age. And we did not see that with Griffey. So look at 2001, where he's 31, he played on. Look at the home runs decline: 8, 13, 20, 35, 27, 30, 18, 15 to his age 38 season. Even age 39 in 170 games, he had 19 home runs. So he probably would have definitely been the all-time home run leader had he been able to stay healthy.
Bettor Sports Network. It's sports talk done better.
The Game Day Playbook, presented by FantasyAlarm.com.
Welcome back, everybody. The Game Day Playbook here, presented by Fantasy Alarm, breaking down Week 4 action. We are less than 20 minutes away from kickoff of the London game between the Minnesota Vikings and the New Orleans Saints. Again, if you're just waking up and joining now, Alvin Kamara ruled out for today's game. The Saints already coming into this game shorthanded. Without Jameis Winston, without Michael Thomas, now no Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray elevated from the practice squad. Mark Ingram's going to be the lead running back there for today anyways. You got to like Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry stepping up. Andy Dalton's going to be the quarterback for the Saints today. They're going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Dalvin Cook going to be playing this day. Wasn't even on the injury list. Coming off of that separated shoulder. He's going to be wearing a harness. Doesn't seem to be too big of an issue for him there. So, again, as more breaking news happens throughout the day, we'll certainly be here throughout the day on the network helping you guys get ready. Again, after the show today, 11 to 1, we have pre-gaming with Front Yard Fantasy, Simon Joey and Joeyel as well. Better Zone 1 to 5, Corey, Adam, and Tom. And, again, Holy Kushner and Pilar Lastra from 5 to 8 as well. We're going to go ahead and, again, be at the show all day today. Download the app. Go to the Bettor Sports Network, download, sign up, be part of the show, and get in on the fun. We're here to help you guys out. So, again, we're starting at 9:30. We do have that Vikings and Saints game kicking off, but we have a lot more to get to as well. We have Cleveland and Atlanta today, and this is an interesting matchup as everybody who's waiting on Cordero Patterson today, currently questionable to play. We'll see if he's going to be active or not. He's going to be a true game time decision, dealing with a knee. They've kind of held him out at practice all week. And they've said they've kind of wanted to limit some of his opportunities this season as well. Being the older back, we know last year towards the end of the year, they started limiting him a bit. They do have Tyler Algier. He would be likely the one to start in his place if he doesn't end up being active for today. So that's something to watch if you have Cordero Patterson in your lineup. In this matchup against Cleveland today, Atlanta get a 1.5 point home favorite of 47.5 game total in this one. On the Cleveland side, I think it's interesting to know that, or something interesting to watch is the way Nick Chubb has run the football so far this year through 3 weeks. We have the fact that of the top running back being drafted, and Coop, now that you're back with us here, Nick Chubb, he's been the most consistent top running back through the first 3 weeks of this season. This is a slam spot for him against Atlanta. I know that Kareem Hunt's always sort of lurking and there to potentially steal those red zone carries, steal some of those snaps. But if you're in DFS today, if you're in season long, you have to feel pretty confident putting a Nick Chubb in your lineup. We got no sound on Coop. I think he's a little muted there. I see the blinking red button on the mic.
There it is.
There we go.
I've been having technical difficulties all morning, John, but
it's super windy outside. I don't know if you guys can hear it. I mean, again, we're in the Northeast, so the weather has been a little wonky this morning. Hopefully, we can the networks can stabilize for us.
Yeah, twice now been kicked out, but I'm back. I'm ready to rock and roll. It's probably just all this energy because we got a morning game. It's blowing the power grid over here, baby. Yeah. But so Nick Chubb, arguably the best back in football, to be honest. Like if he wasn't splitting with Kareem Hunt, we would consider him probably 1 or 2 because he can do it all. He can catch, he can run. It's just they have another guy who's led the league in yards before rushing when he was with the Chiefs and can catch the ball pretty well. So we know what the split is. It's Chubb in positive game scripts. Kareem Hunt plays a little more when they're trailing, but this game they should be winning. It's the Atlanta Falcons. So Nick Chubb, lock and load all your lineups and DFS, probably the good chalk today, right, John?
Yeah, the good chalk today for sure. What are your thoughts on David Njoku in this spot?
I mean,
did he follow up his big performance from last week?
I had to move him down after the first couple of weeks because he was blocking on 17% of his pass snaps. That's way too many. And then last week he comes out, runs 28 routes, only blocks on 2 pass plays. It's kind of wheels up for David Njoku. Just remember in the back of your mind that there are going to be situations where they keep him in to block. Like last week, had TJ Watt been healthy and playing, we might not have seen the David Njoku we did. But the Falcons don't really have that good of a pass rush, so it's probably going to be another nice spot to start David Njoku. I have him pretty high in my weekly rankings.
Yep, I agree with you as well. He's good value in DFS this week as well. Over in DraftKings, he's $3,700, so a really good spot to go ahead and get him in there. On the Atlanta side, like I said, you can pretty much play anybody. I don't know. Would you start Tyler Algier today if he starts ahead of Cordell Patterson?
I don't think I would, just because again, it's not a good it's not a great matchup for it. Now, do we know if Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney are playing? I know they were both questionable coming into
Garrett's out.
Garrett is out. Okay, yeah. I mean, he rolled his car, so it'd be amazing if he did play, right? But yeah, so I mean, I'm not really interested in Algier. For me, I'm starting Patterson, I'm starting Drake London, I'm starting Pitts, probably not touching anybody else.
All right, I'm with you on that one. We've had a couple questions. Again, we're going to try to answer these as we hit sort of the games that we're going through. Archie, though, has a question. Taysom Hill or Gerald Everett? Obviously a tight end question. Yeah. Taysom Hill's value, though, in this game with everybody missing for New Orleans. What are your thoughts?
I don't even have Taysom Hill ranked within my top 25 tight ends because he's not a tight end, and he only played 6 snaps last time he played, even while Alvin Kamara was out, right? Like, we saw what the floor is. He touches the ball a couple times and it either works or doesn't. He's not going to average 20 yards a carry like he did week 1. That no one does that. It's, that's a one-game thing. Gerald Everett's in a perfect spot. Keenan Allen's out once again. He's been great with Keenan Allen out.
16 targets the last 2 weeks without Keenan Allen in the game. So I'm with you on that one as well. Jacksonville versus the Philadelphia Eagles today. Again, this is a weather game that we're watching. 6.5 point spread. Philly is a favorite here. 44.5 game total. This one looks to be maybe the worst of the weather games. We're going to have pretty consistent rain throughout. Winds 15 to 20 miles an hour. It could very well be a run game, which is fine because Jalen Hurts, we know, can run the football. But this is one of those games where it's like your conventional analysis doesn't really apply because you don't know exactly how all of that weather is going to go ahead and impact everything here. So I guess you're really looking at the running backs, maybe a good James Robinson game. We don't really like going up against this Philly defense all too much, but Jacksonville's defense now starting to step itself up the last 2 weeks, going on the road, beating the Chargers at home, shutting out the Colts, even though there was no Michael Pittman in that game. 2 pretty impressive wins there for them.
Yeah. I mean, they've looked good. The Jaguars, I feel like they did the rebuild the right way, inside out. They finally went out, got the pieces they wanted. People laughed at them when they went out and paid Christian Kirk, but he looks awesome. So you got to start him. And just a reminder to all you guys in the chat, we are going to hit your questions. Any question you have on the game coming up right now, ask it now, and we'll get those done over the next 5 minutes. Anything else, we are taking them, we're adding them to the show sheet, and we're answering them as the applicable games come up. For instance, it's Fragger Pick in the chat says, pick 1 RB, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. Aaron Jones, Herbert, Devonta Smith, Curtis Samuel, CeeDee Lamb, And obviously, Devonta Smith is in this game. We're talking about the Jags-Eagles here, so we'll answer this question. John, I'm definitely starting Aaron Jones, and I'm definitely starting CeeDee Lamb. So basically,
I'm playing Khalil Herbert for me.
And then Khalil Herbert as well. So yeah, pretty easy one for us. Get the wide receiver of that group is Lamb, and then start Aaron Jones and Khalil Herbert. Yeah. So make sure you get your questions in now on the games that's starting in 5 minutes. Shelly Walker asked Dortch, who's been scorching hot, Chris Olave or Romeo Doubs. John, what do you think? We're pretty locked in on Olave today, right?
Yeah, I think we're going to play Olave. My worry with Dortch is that Rondale Moore is actually expected to be back today, and how does that impact his value in that offense now? Because, again, we were expecting Moore to sort of be that guy next to Hollywood Brown, and then Dortch was the one that had to step in that meantime. It's not that Dortch won't be on the field anymore, but Rondale Moore is expected to fill that role, so we'll see. And then with Romeo Doubs, I'm very curious to see how the snap count breakdown works for this week with him. Obviously, a breakout week last week, but that was without Sammy Watkins and Christian Watson. Watkins, we know, is on IR, but Watson is returning for today. In week 1, Watson played ahead of Doubs in terms of snap count. And then in week 2, they kind of split snap shares. They both played around 35% or so. Without Sammy Watkins now there and Watson last week, Doubs played 90%. But with Watson coming back in, is it more of a split snap count? Has Doubs overtaken him? So I think there's some risk still for him there. That's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, a little bit of risk there. So who would you go with inevitably?
I would go Olave.
Yeah, I'm going Olave too. The upside is just too great. I mean, it's not Andy Dalton's a good quarterback. I mean, we now are seeing that, like, Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet had their best games last year with Andy Dalton, and now we see what they look like with Justin Fields. It's not great. Like, Andy Dalton is a very serviceable player in this league. I think he can prop up Chris Olave, especially with Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara out. The ball has to go somewhere.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there as well. Chargers versus Houston. We have a game here. 5.5. Houston is a home underdog. 44.5 game total. No Keenan Allen for the Chargers in this one. We obviously already answered the question with Taysom Hill, Gerald Everett. But we do have some other questions here. Pierce or Ingram? What are your thoughts on that one? A game that's starting up soon, a game that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling pretty good about Mark Ingram. I don't know if I really want to start Damien Pierce against the Chargers defense. So, Mark Ingram's going to get the full role. I mean, he knows the offense, capable back. I'd probably go Ingram here. I don't know, John. What do you think?
I'm actually not too worried about the running game against the Chargers. Teams have been able to run against them pretty easily now for a better half of a year. Even James Robinson, of course, last week had the 100 yards on the big 50-yard run as well against them. I guess my worry is game script. If the Chargers pull ahead in this one, does it become more of a Rex Burkhead game because they have to kind of play that pass catching comeback role there in Houston today, not really playing from ahead where they can run Pierce, or in a competitive game where they run Pierce enough. But I don't mind Pierce, but that said, I'd probably run Ingram out there as well. Again, he can actually catch the football a little bit too, a little underrated value to Mark Ingram there. So Brendan Palmer, I'll go with the Ingram on that one. We have one more Ingram question again, because we have that game starting in 2 minutes. Jeff Wilson or Ingram today? I'm going Jeff Wilson.
Jeff Wilson, for sure. He plays like every snap.
You're going to start Amari Cooper in the flex. You're going to start Jeff Wilson there. So
he's a hot hand. And just a reminder to everybody, we're going through the games. We're seeing all your questions. We're putting them into the game, into our show sheet. Right now, we just want to make sure we answer any questions on this early game. As we hit these games, we're going to hit your questions. So stay tuned for the game that, the first one that's got your player in it, we're going to hit it. So we're going to keep rolling through these. Now we're hitting Damien Pierce questions. Soon enough, we're going to hit yours. So stay tuned. We're definitely going to hit your questions. All right, guys?
Yep. Tyler Kelly has one. Mike Williams, Chris Olave, or Drake London, pick 2 in a full PPR.
Mike Williams with no Keenan Allen. I got to go there.
For sure. And then London or Olave, full PPR.
Ooh, that's kind of tough. I like London. Olave too. I think I'd rather just start Drake London with to me, they have the same upside, but one of them is playing with the quarterback he's playing with all year. The other one's playing with a backup quarterback. Sometimes these games are just brutal when the backup comes in. So I think I would go Drake London.
Yeah, London Williams for me there as well. So other storylines in this Chargers-Houston game, Austin Eckler struggles running the football this season. Hasn't had a game over 3 yards a carry last couple of weeks, so 18 targets, saving himself without Keenan Allen. We know he's going to be there in PPR value, but when do we start worrying about him on the ground?
Sorry, which player was that?
Yeah, Alston Eckler. Are we worried about him running?
The thing is, we always knew that this guy wasn't a big. I mean, he's never had 1,000 yards rushing, so he needs to get those targets. You drafted him in full PPR where you did because of the targets, so you can't really be too upset with the rushing. But he does have to get it going. Last year, he scored 20 touchdowns. He's clearly not on that kind of pace this year. This is a big bounce back game for him. And if you were thinking about trading him, I wouldn't do it until after this game at the very least. Like. We have to see what he looks like here, and if he goes big, then you can get the real value back for him that you should be getting.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like you said, he's never been a workhorse running back, but obviously yards per carry the last couple of seasons have been better than 2.5 or whatever it is, right? Like under 3 yards a carry for the first 3 weeks of the season. So this should be a matchup everybody's expecting where he can get it going. Houston last week, got run all over. With Khalil Herbert. So we'll see again what moves forward in that spot there. Anybody else kind of highlighting work for you in this one?
From this game, I mean, you got to start Everett. On the Houston side, I'm not really super interested in anybody outside of maybe Brandon Cooks if you have nobody else, but it's been pretty ugly for Houston so far.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's difficult to really trust much there. Any interest in like Jordan Akins today? Got elevated from their practice squad. No Brevin Jordan.
Nah. So what this is, there's 32 teams. Not every team is going to have a top 12 tight end, which is what we need in most of our leagues. This team, they use Farrell Brown, but he doesn't run a lot of routes, and then they mix in these other guys. It's not an interesting setup for me.
All right. Tennessee versus Indianapolis here. The Colts are 3.5-point favorites, 42.5 game total. Tennessee winning last week against the Raiders. Colts here beating the Chiefs. It was a pretty impressive win. What are your thoughts in this matchup here?
I mean, you got to start Michael Pittman and you got to start Jonathan Taylor. Outside of that, I'm not super interested in anybody on the Colts. Paris Campbell has been running a ton of routes. He's basically, the all-exercise team
right now.
Captain. Yeah, he's putting a lot of air miles out there without making a lot of stops in touchdown land or even reception land for that matter. So somebody to keep an eye on in case it does ever turn into targets, because I mean, first you get the snaps, then you get the targets, right? But as of right now, I can't really do anything with it. With Tennessee, the guy that is most interesting to me is Trayvon Burke. He ran 29 of 30 routes last week, and he's starting to produce a little bit. So if you have Burks, that's an interesting upside play for sure.
Yeah, they just have a really tough secondary, obviously, that you're having to deal with there with the Colts, and obviously they just beat the Chiefs, so won't be any easier for Tennessee here today. A couple questions again while we're on the games. Quick backtrack: Josh Reynolds or Brandon Cooks today for Big Mac?
I would start Brandon Cooks. I can't trust Josh Reynolds. I mean, we like guys that have already earned targets when the other guys get hurt. It gets dicey when you're going with guys that haven't earned targets, just assuming that they'll get them just because there's no one else.
Well, he did have a big game last week, though. Yeah, I think he had over 100 yards. So,
well, I mean, that one game, though, I mean, I don't know. I think I still trust Brandon Cooks personally. I don't know. Would you go with Reynolds over Brandon Cooks?
I might go Reynolds against Seattle today. I might go Reynolds.
He had six for 96, but
yeah, and he has that sort of connection with Goff. We saw it last year when they brought him on. So, I think I personally would lean Reynolds in that matchup.
All right.
Matt Ryan or Carson Wentz today?
Wentz for sure. I can't go Matt Ryan.
Yeah, hard to go Matt Ryan, even though it's not a great matchup. Howard Renner had an interesting point today about that game, was that Washington Dallas. Everybody's assuming Dallas is going to run house in that game. Yet it's only a 3-point spread with Dallas at home. So Vegas is basically saying why is it a 3-point spread? Maybe Washington's going to be a little bit more competitive in this game than the public thinks. So I think Wentz could be an interesting one there as well. So Tennessee, Indy, though, again, it's going to be tough to run for Henry. The Colts defense is really strong today. But I too am a little bit surprised that we see only a 3.5-point spread in that one as well.
There's a couple of those games where I look at it and and you're right. At the end of the day, it's usually Vegas who's right? It's not us looking at it and saying, why is this the spread? Like I look at the a game we already talked about, the Atlanta Cleveland game, and that's a pretty close spread, right? So maybe it won't be a big of a Cleveland Nick Chubb steamroll game as we think, right? It's only 1.5 points. So, always be checking on those for your fantasy and of course for your betting as well.
Yep, for sure. We do have one question. Unfortunately, it doesn't involve a player from the Saints, so I apologize that we missed it there. Trey wanted to know Allen Robinson, Chris Olave, Kareem Hunt, or Devonta Smith. Obviously, Olave out of the picture there. If he was to start two, assuming he went with Olave, would you go Allen Robinson, Kareem Hunt, or Devonta Smith?
I think I'm starting Devonta Smith. Keep an eye on that weather to see if it gets too crazy. If it does, then I'd probably pivot to Kareem Hunt. But Devonta Smith he's got crazy upside. Allen Robinson just hasn't really been involved, so kind of a tough start there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. And like I said, everybody thought Allen Robinson was in for a career revival a little bit going to the Rams, but Cooper Kupp is there, and Cooper Kupp dominates that target share. Robert Woods last year got off to a really slow start, and he kind of came on certain weeks he would have it, but it doesn't seem like we're going to be getting this 1,300-yard Allen Robinson season that people were hopeful of getting there. So something to continue to pay attention to as we move along there. Again, sort of to recap some of the top stories from today, as we mentioned already, Alvin Kamara is out. That game's underway right now. Minnesota has the football heading towards midfield in the London game, Vikings versus the Saints, but there was no Alvin Kamara today in that matchup. For the Lions, injuries, DJ Chark, DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, all ruled out. Some interesting players maybe returning, though. Tampa Bay, Chris Godwin and Julio Jones are expected to play. They're getting Mike Evans back from that suspension. Will be interesting to see what this Buccaneers offense looks like and just how long those trio can stay healthy together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just want to hit a couple questions in the chat real quick because we already saw those games. PD, PCP, Dobbins, or CPAT. I'm starting Cordell Patterson. Just hard to trust a guy like Dobbins in his first game back, especially because it's a team where they like to use different backs and they like to use Lamar Jackson in the end zone. So you in agreement there, John? Cordell Patterson over Dobbins?
Yeah, I would say the fact that he wasn't on the injury list at all does give me a little bit more hope that he's more ready to go than he was last week when they limited sort of the work that he had there. But it's not a great matchup, right? You can't really run against Buffalo all too well. So I'm in agreement with you there, Coop.
And reminder, we're going to hit all these questions. Once we get to the game at hand that we're discussing, anyone, we've got all your questions. We're putting them in the show doc. We're going to hit them. So, if you ask a question about a game we haven't hit yet, we're going to get to it. So stay tuned with us. All right.
Yep, for sure. And again, just to recap some of the top stories for the day, the weather is going to be impacting a couple of those games. One of those we just mentioned, Baltimore, Buffalo, going to have some wind, going to have some rain. Philly and Jacksonville, going to have a lot of rain. It's going to be high winds there. The Giants and Chicago game, that one is expected to have some rain and some wind involved as well. So pay more attention as we get too closer to roster lock and see exactly if any of those forecasts have since changed. And we'll go ahead and, update that throughout the day at the Bettor Sports Network with the shows that we have coming up throughout the day. So, Coop, we have Arizona versus Carolina. Carolina is a 1-point home favorite, a 43.5 game total here. Rondale Moore expected to return for Arizona. The Cardinals offense hasn't looked great. Baker Mayfield's the worst quarterback in the NFL. What are your thoughts here on this Carolina-Arizona game? Christian McCaffrey's been banged up all week as well, coming into this game with an injury.
Yeah, I mean, this is the walking wounded here, these two teams. And then just poor DJ Moore, who's completely healthy, but, is at the whim of what we believe to be a terrible quarterback, a incompetent coach, and then now a star running back who's banged up. So going to be tough for them to move the ball today. On the other side, Arizona has Kyler Murray, who is, running around playing what LaShawn McCoy described as high school football. I was actually at the game last week when I was out in Arizona, and he's not entirely wrong. I mean, the guy runs around all over the place behind the line of scrimmage, kind of just chucks it up downfield, or he takes the low-hanging fruit. We saw a million passes underneath to Marquise Brown and Greg Dortch. One of the questions we did get so far was Parking Lot 67G asked Greg Dortch or Ramondre Stevenson half PPR. If Rondale Moore is out, I'm starting Greg Dortch. As long as Rondale Moore is out, Greg Dortch is a very reliable starter.
Moore is expected to play. I don't think that's really a question.
Play.
So, yeah.
Okay, so he is going to play. So, yeah. John, in that case, with Rondale Moore back, and Marquise Brown playing as well?
Yeah.
If both those guys playing,
both are expected to play today. Yeah,
both expected to play. Would you start Greg Dortch or would you start Ramondre Stevenson?
probably Ramondre, because
Yeah,
again, I think unless Moore is on a snap count, which he could be his first game back here, I don't really know if you can trust the volume Dortch has been getting. So
right.
That's kind of the way I lean in that spot.
We've
talked about the struggles of this Carolina offense. Back-to-back 100-yard games for Christian McCaffrey has been great. The usage in the pass game hasn't been what we wanted. DJ Moore, of course, struggling. Matt Rule apparently said that he wants the receivers to help out Baker by what, getting open more. Like, what does that mean? Right? Like, I mean, how it doesn't really matter how open they get. I don't think Baker can hit them anyway. So, that's kind of interesting to throw your receiving group under the bus there. I saw the DJ Moore just kind of like slyly look at the reporter like, I don't know how to answer that truthfully without ripping into anybody. So yeah, listen, there's not much you can really want to play here. You have to play DJ Moore, obviously. You have to play Christian McCaffrey. You just kind of have to temper your expectations a bit with that Carolina offense.
Yeah, for sure, man. And the thing is, if I was Baker Mayfield, I would be dumping it down to Christian McCaffrey as much as possible. There's no shame in that. I mean, we saw one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Drew Brees, make a living for a couple of years there, dumping it down to Alvin Kamara and to Michael Thomas. So if you can't get anything going, just start completing some short passes and it'll open the rest up. Like, that's my advice to this team. Like, just stop trying to, I know you want to force it down the field and do all these big things. How about completing some passes first? Same thing with Justin Fields and the Bears. Like, how about just throwing some passes that you can complete and get the ball rolling a little bit and then figure it out from there. So
the fact that the Chicago just won through the football is it's wild to me. It's an interesting strategy.
We got another question on this game from the YouTube chat. If you guys are in YouTube, keep dropping questions there, but download the Bettor Sports app. That's the best way to reach us. And you can call in, ask your questions. We'll put you on live. It's a lot of fun if you call in and chat with us. It makes it more interesting for everybody. So Baby Santa says, sup guys, got a dark question here. Should I start Zach Ertz or Allen Robinson? So this is a flex. I know tight end in the flex is always a dicey decision, John. What are you thinking?
I'd probably go Allen Robinson still.
I think I still like the upside of Allen Robinson. Ertz, he's never been a big yak guy. He needs those targets. He needs those touchdowns. In the Ertz world, basically it's 2 touchdowns or that's it. Like, he's probably not going to have too many 100-yard games. Allen Robinson could easily have a big game, with his ADOT, with what he does. I'm not willing to give up yet. So I go Allen Robinson. Go for some upside.
Yeah, I agree with you there. As well. I think that's what, if we're breaking it down like that, I think that's how I'm gonna go to it as well. Other 1:00 games here, Coop. Washington, Dallas, as I mentioned. Dallas here is a 3-point favorite, a 41.5 game total. This is a spot where we thought maybe Dak would come back, and he ended up not being ready to go. Michael Gallup will be back here. What kind of confidence do we have in this Dallas offense again with Cooper Rush under center?
I mean, Cooper Rush hasn't been bad. He's, learned he already had some rapport going with Noah Brown. He clearly has built it with CeeDee Lamb. It's going to be hard to trust Michael Gallup to have that rapport with him because they haven't played together in the past, probably haven't practiced much together. And then, Dalton Schultz has the same injury that Zeke had last year. Maybe not as severe because it's not fully torn, but he has a PCL. Hard to try. I have Schultz fairly low in my rankings this week just because we don't know what his snap share is going to be. So I'm not really trusting Schultz or Gallup, but CeeDee Lamb, it's wheels up. And, maybe still Noah Brown, maybe still a little bit of Noah Brown in DFS at least.
How much confidence are you having in this in Carson Wentz today? Dallas over 3.5 sacks was one of my top prop plays of the day. They lead the league in sacks this season. Last week we saw Wentz get sacked 9 times. To me, it felt 3.5 was pretty low. They're going to be home. Micah Parsons is an animal. How much confidence do you have in this Washington offense, knowing that so far they haven't been able to protect Carson Wentz?
Yeah, it's the perfect storm for sacks, right? Like, Dallas defense might be the start of the week just because you saw what happened last week. DeMarcus Lawrence had 3 sacks by himself last week, right? So it's kind of a perfect storm for that. Definitely start Dallas defense wherever you have them. They're probably the DFS defense smash as well. So I'm with you on that. Was it over under 3 sacks? Smash.
Yeah, over 3.5. Yeah.
Yeah, smash it.
We got Rick Wolf in the chat. Gallup, let's go. 6 for 75. What do you think of Gallup in his return?
Again, like I said, I'd love for them to have waited, and they basically this week said he's a fully go. Like, we waited till he was exactly 100%. He's a full go, but it's a combination of things. Even if he is a full go, what kind of rapport does he have with Cooper Rush? We have these other guys that have been playing with him for a couple weeks now. Noah Brown's been playing with him on the scout team for all offseason. That's why they have rapport. So I don't know if I trust him just yet, but I'd love to have him on the depth chart if I have him on my bench, on my roster.
We have it looks like we have a touchdown in that game between the Vikings and the Saints here. Alexander Madison with a 15-yard touchdown catch, Coop. Much to the chagrin of everybody. Looks like that it's now 7-0 based off of the Gamecast that I'm looking on. So we'll go ahead and chalk that up. If you are a Dalvin Cook manager, you have to be upset that Alexander Madison is catching touchdown passes here in week 4.
Right. And that's anybody that is watching, it looked like KJ Osborne had scored, but that one got called back. A holding penalty, was it? Pass interference. So that's pretty rough for the KJ Osborne fans out there.
Right.
If you snuck Madison was a tough start with Cook active. So
that's what it was. Yeah, he was tough start with Cook active. Maybe if you were in best ball, or I guess if you're Ed Bunnell in the chat there, Big Bun, happy that Madison apparently scored today. So congrats on your call, your play there. Hopefully more success for you today there, sir. So we'll see what happens with that game as we continue to follow it along. Of course, with the Vikings now up 7-0, Saints getting the ball. We'll see what that makeshift offense can be going on here with Andy Dalton and crew now under center. Chicago,
it's like week 1 all over again in New Orleans, right? New offense in London. Go Juwan Johnson. Let's go, baby.
Chicago Bears versus New York Giants. Again, this is a game that could have some weather impact in it. Low total, low spread, 38.5 total here, 3-point spread. Giants are 3-point favorites. Given sort of the weather and the team's lack of passing abilities here, you got to think running back sort of the way to go in this one. Khalil Herbert last week over 150 yards rushing. Saquon Barkley been every bit the running back those who drafted him late first, early second round had hoped. Big heavy dose of the backfields in this game.
Yeah, I mean, you start the backs, and that's almost about it, right? Maybe entirely it.
I don't know who's even catching footballs for the Giants this week. That's the question.
I guess they have, against their will, they're gonna probably have to use Kenny Golladay, because otherwise it's like Richie James, David Sills. My sneaky DFS play of the week is Tanner Hudson in this game. If you look at it, he and Daniel Bellinger are kind of splitting the snaps. Bellinger plays more, but he plays an inline role. Tanner Hudson plays wide receiver. He's actually not only played more snaps at wide receiver than Daniel Bellinger, but he's run more routes outright, 55 to 50. So Tanner Hudson is a sneaky play, again, only because he's so cheap. If if they were both the same price, maybe you go Bellinger, but because he's running more routes and he's the bare minimum price on every platform, I'm getting him in a couple GPP lineups just to have that one play that nobody else has.
Right. Just calling back real quick because we do have a question about a game we touched upon already. Archie Hancock in the YouTube chat. Reese Hall, Zeke Elliott, J.K. Dobbins, or Damien Pierce needs to start 2. We've talked about 3 of those 4 running backs already. Mm-hmm. How are your thoughts on them? And what's up with our boy Zeke here, huh? Tony Pollard starting to cut a little bit more into that role.
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty clear at this point what these guys are. Like, Zeke is better in pass protection and he's better in short yardage, but Tony Pollard is better in open space and he's looking pretty explosive. So they've pretty much decided to split it that way. I mean, if you look at Zeke's splits on 1st and 10 or anything 10 yards or longer to go, he's averaging 5.5 yards a carry. What's really bringing down his yards per carry is he's the one that, when you get the ball on 3rd and 1 or 1st and goal from the 1 and you score a touchdown, that's a 1-yard run. It hurts your yards per carry. So I don't think the skill gap is as drastic as people think, but in the NFL, if you have 2 guys that can do it, why would you use one? So that's where we're at with them. And because of that, I do like Damien Pierce. He's got 20 carries last week. He's getting the bulk of that work. So I think of these guys, Damien Pierce is the one I trust most. Now, what I would need to know, Archie, if you don't mind, is this full PPR, half, standard? Because I think Reese Hall is much more entertaining in full PPR than he is in most formats. John, is there one of these three guys that jumps out to you regardless of format, or where you at?
I mean, I'm definitely playing Zeke, I think, anyways, because the touchdown upside's there for him. Reese Hall is interesting, and we'll touch upon that game now. We'll talk about the Jets and the Pittsburgh Steelers matchup. Because last week, obviously, he started to overtake Michael Carter for shares. We know his involvement in the passing game. He's a better runner than Carter, but Zach Wilson last year didn't throw to the running backs at all. So that's where I worry a little bit. You talked a lot about how the Jets are on pace to throw 900 times this year. And that was obviously with Joe Flacco at quarterback. Would they do the same with Zach Wilson at quarterback? They trust him to throw as much, or they lean more on the running game, given he's sort of lack of experience in the NFL? That's something to pay attention to. What I do know is you can run against Pittsburgh. Teams have been running on this Steelers defense all season long. Reese Hall is one of my favorite DFS dart throw plays today, not because of his ability to catch the football. We know he can do it, but I think he's going to get a heavy dose of running the football today. And I'm hopeful that last week is going to continue to be a launch point for him when it comes to leading this backfield in DFS and seasonal moving forward.
Yeah, you're right. It's that you look at Zach Wilson, and obviously, if you are a Jets fan, you're rooting for Zach Wilson to come back, be the long-term answer. But Flacco is the guy that was throwing 50 times a game the first 3 weeks, and Mike White was the guy that was throwing to the running backs last year. So Zach Wilson runs more of a balanced attack, which could be better for guys like Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore, but it's not going to be the offense that we've seen. They're not going to average 77 snaps a game. The team that led the league last year averaged 69. So it's not going to happen. And that's what concerns me for guys like Tyler Conklin and Reese Hall, these volume-driven performances we've seen so far, because that volume is not going to stay like that, for the rest of the year. So I'm with you. Zeke, Damien Pierce. That's where I'm going.
Yep. We got a couple questions on this one. Garrett Wilson or James Conner at a flex today?
I think I got to go James Conner. The problem with Garrett Wilson is he's not playing a full snap share. I would love to, after the 2-touchdown game, I thought it was going to be the Garrett Wilson show, but he's not really. He's playing like 60 to 70% of the snaps, which is fine when you're running 80 snaps. But when you have a normal game script and run like 60, then that's not really cutting it. So I do like James Conner.
Conner for me, because he's a starting running back, but I think Wilson is bound to eventually break out of this one. I know a lot of people are high on Elijah Moore today because of his success last season with Zach Wilson towards the end of the year. So something to pay attention to.
Elijah Moore's run the 5th most routes of any wide receiver in the league. Some of that is based on the pace, but he is the guy that every single game so far, he's ran the most routes of all these Jets, more than Corey Davis, more than Garrett Wilson. So he's the one that's most intriguing to me of these Jets wide receivers.
Yep. Devin Newton wants to know: start 2, Reese Hall, Garrett Wilson, Hollywood Brown. Kind of a longer list here. Coop, that he's asking. Jerry Jeudy, Curtis Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and a half PPR.
Yeah, that's a pretty serious list. I don't know if I can go away from Curtis Samuel right now with the volume he's getting, John. Half PPR is kind of the rub there. Otherwise, he'd be a slam dunk. Is there anyone of that group that jumped out to you as like, you got to get this one guy in there at least?
Yeah, I'm playing Hollywood for sure.
Yeah, Hollywood, 17 targets last week.
Like Jerry Jeudy. Listen, I understand how bad the Denver offense has looked, but can it look bad forever? I don't know. In week 1, they played a bad defense in Seattle, and that offense put up fantasy points and scored. This week, they face a Raiders team that just lost to the Titans. I mean, how good is the Raiders defense? I know they're on the road, but I kind of want to lean into Jeudy here a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, 11 targets, 9 targets, 10 targets, John. Curtis Samuel. It's boring play.
It's only a half PPR.
Yeah, 10 targets. PPR. Yeah, last week, Curtis Samuel, 10 targets, 48 yards. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. 10 targets. If he catches 6 for 40 and a half PPR, that's 7 fantasy points. What's that?
Yeah, but he's also getting the carries, man. 4 carries, 1 carry, 3 carries.
Yeah, but his yards haven't been great. His carries
are, but it's only a matter of time.
I'll tell you what, I've been very tempted on betting the over on his rushing prop today. I do the prize picks piece over at Fantasy Alarm. You can go check that out now. Over 9.5 rushing yards for Carson Samuel today. I'm very tempted to take a look at that because it's so low, and he's hit it over and all. I think he's hit it over in every week so far. So Al in the chat, over 9.5 equals a lock. I agree with you. It does feel like it's a lock.
Throwing the strong arm on that one.
I hate the idea of betting over rushing props on receivers, but it's over 9.5 just felt so low to me.
You feel pretty stupid when they don't get a carry because they're not running backs.
Money, I'll feel like a genius when he rips one off like 25 yards in a reverse though. So I'm with you there.
Devin, I think Devin just responded there in the chat. I agree about Jerry. So I think Devin, you got the idea here. If you feel good about the rest of your lineup, Curtis Samuel is as safe as it gets. If you think you need that extra juice, go with Jerry Jeudy. He's got higher upside. Curtis Samuel is one of the lowest gadget type players. So you know what you got to do. Take a look at your lineup and make the play.
Yep, that's kind of how I'm leaning with it as well. Plus, if that pass rush is as nasty as it is for Dallas, Carson Wentz may have no other option but just to throw it quick to Samuel today. So, it could be something in that direction. We talked about Dallas already. We have a Pollard or DJ Moore question in a standard league. I think you have to go DJ Moore in a standard league.
In standard, yeah. I mean, running backs are generally safer in standard. I mean, DJ Moore, man.
I just feel like there's more guaranteed usage potentially with Moore.
Right? Six targets last week, 1 catch, 2 yards. Can't be that bad every week. Can't be that bad every week. I get DJ Moore.
My one with Paulo too is if you look, his box scores look great, and the type of player he is, like you don't take these things away from him. But back-to-back weeks, he's had like 50-yard plays to account for 50% of his yardage, right? So for the rest of the time, he hasn't really been that productive of a player. He's just making big plays. Again, he's a big play guy. Jason Peters opened up a hole the size a truck could drive through last week, and he ran for 50 yards. Ezekiel Elliott got the same hole. He ran for 27. So, again, you get a good offensive line. You get a guy that can open up space. Those guys can hit those holes and make big plays. But if and you can say this about any player, but Tony Pollard, you take away his 50-yard plays back-to-back weeks, his numbers aren't looking as good.
Right. And we care about the underlying numbers. Football is at its heart a small sample size sport. 3 games is nothing. In baseball, that's not even a week of games, right? So we have to look at the underlying numbers, and I care more about guys being on the field, getting the ball, than I do about what their fantasy points were, right? Because like you said, a 50-point touchdown a 50-yard touchdown changes everything. Like if I showed somebody who didn't know football a clip of Jerome Simpson flipping into the end zone, they'd be like, "That's the best player of all time," no? And I'd be like, "Nah, he's actually not even good. It's just that's the way football works, So
that's the way Alexander Madison catches a 15-yard touchdown catch.
Exactly, right? You're gonna look at it next week and be like, "Oh, should I start this guy?" No, he's not even a starting running back. So you got to go by who's getting the usage. 6 targets every week for DJ Moore creates a nice floor.
Yeah. So again, we're currently watching this Minnesota Vikings New Orleans Saints game. Saints went out there 3-and-out right away. Andy Dalton did complete 2 passes. Adam Trautman a catch for 12 yards. Mark Ingram a catch for 2. Ingram also has a carry for 2 yards. Kirk Cousins driving Minnesota down the field again. 10 of 13, 98 yards and a score so far for Cousins. Dalvin Cook 4 carries for 14 yards. Receiving wise, Adam Thielen 3 for 40 today. Dalvin Cook does have 2 catches for 10. Irv Smith Jr., 2 catches for 16 yards. Alexander Madison, 1 catch, 15 yards and a score. Justin Jefferson, 2 for 17. So that's what we got going on here in this Minnesota Vikings New Orleans Saints game. Again, Vikings are driving down the field yet again. They're the 40-yard line right now going down the field. So we'll see, and we'll continue to monitor that. And again, you want to stay with the Bettor Sports Network all day today following our show. We have pre-gaming with Funk Yard Fantasy with Simon, Joey, and JL from 11 to 1. We have Better Zone from 1 to 5 with Corey, Adam, and Tom. And then again, 5 to 8, we have Holden Kushner and Pilar Lastra as well. And the only way to be part of these shows is to download the Bettor Sports app next, and get involved, sign up, and be everything we got going on here, Coop.
Yeah. Get in, call us, skip the line, call in, talk about anything you want. We like hanging out. It's the morning, pour up a coffee, give us a buzz, smash that fun button. Let's go.
Exactly. When Coop and I get back, we're going to preview some more of these games. Buffalo, Baltimore, New England, Green Bay, Denver, Las Vegas. Some more of your questions as well. This is the Game Day Playbook on the Bettor Sports Network.
Front Yard Fantasy with Simon and Coop.
JL, I think this is the game everyone's been waiting for, and the moment in this game that we are probably going to have to talk about for at least the next 15 minutes. The Miami Dolphins took down the Buffalo Bills 21-19, and we got to talk about it. The play of the game, the butt punt.
The butt punt.
Punted straight into Trent Sherfield's abyss between his legs is where that
booty
football
patootie.
It was straight up there. It could not have been aimed better up that Tookus. Like, he just went for it. Like, you look at the picture, shout out USA Today photographer that caught that image, because wow, moment of impact, and you can really see just how well aimed between the cheeks that ball was. And Craig said, did y'all see Mark Sanchez's tweet to the punter? I did. Mark Sanchez tweet, stay out of my lane, bro.
That's pretty good.
I love all these self-aware tweets yesterday. Mark Sanchez, Orlovsky, like they're just coming in and like poking fun of themselves.
Yeah.
That's pretty good stuff right there.
Corey, Nando, and friends. Presented by Mayo Media on Bettor Sports Network.
Speaking of TV, last night I tried to watch Aaron Judge.
Did you watch the K-Rod broadcast?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like I went to ESPN Plus and I'm like, I want to watch this K-Rod thing because they had Roger Clemens and they had Barry Bonds on. Bonds brought up when Clemens hit him on his piece of armor. And Clemens was like, no, it was a strike, man. It was a strike.
No, like, Clemens was like, if you wear, and I don't blame Clemens, if you wear that thing, right, that piece of armor, and you on top of the plate like that, target practice. I'm going to see if I can hit that joint.
And Clemens, it was a strike. Get off the plate is basically what he said.
Yeah, exactly. Get off the plate.
Can you imagine the three of them? Like, you're Michael Kay, and you're sitting there with Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez,
and Roger.
Three guys who should be in the Hall of Fame and are not. Like, who should have been like first ballot, slam dunk Hall of Famers.
That's the problem with the game.
We should get them on the show. All three of them together on this show.
That'd be cool. Corey, Nando, and friends. They're the friends.
They're the friends. I mean, why not, right? They seem like nice guys.
Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
I started watching the Jeffrey Dahmer series on Netflix last night, which I knew a lot.
That looked pretty freaky, man. Is it as frightening and kind of eerie as it looks?
Yeah, it's disturbing. Like, you know, there's no.
You think? He ate people, Ray. It better be disturbing to you.
I know the story. He ate people and murders. I knew, but I didn't know he was drunk all the time. And
well, Ray, I mean, we've all been there. You get the munchies when you're drunk. That would be actually a defense in court. Your Honor, I was drunk the whole time. I was hungry and I needed food and my neighbor was there. Right. What am I supposed to do?
I found he had like beer cans all over his place. There was a lot of Miller and Bud. I guess he was not only was he a person of opportunity with the killings, he was a beer drinker of opportunity. Because I don't think you normally do one and the other. You should do one or the other.
I don't want to tell AB or Miller how to do their business, but don't go marketing that Jeffrey Dahmer loved your beer while he was eating kidneys.
The Game Day Playbook, presented by FantasyAlarm.com.
Jackson will keep it. He's got room. He's at the 30. It's a leg race. 40. Lamar Jackson midfield and going 40. One man to beat 30. He's to the 20. 10, 5, touchdown with a tumble.
Welcome back, everybody. Game Day Playbook presented by Fantasy Alarm here on the Bettor Sports Network, previewing Week 4 action, getting you up to date on all of the latest injury news of the day. Again, if you're just joining us now, we have the Lions dealing with all of their injuries for today. DJ Chark, we have DeAndre Swift ruled out for them. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Keenan Allen is out for the Chargers today. We also have Hunter Renfrow out for the Raiders. J.K. Dobbins is going to be active, not on the injury report for the Baltimore Ravens today as well. Michael Gallup expected to make his season debut. Dak Prescott not yet ready to return. Bucks getting healthy. Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Russell Gage, all expected to play today for Tampa Bay. So A lot going on here in the NFL early morning. We're also watching this game between the Vikings and the Saints. I mentioned it before we went to break. The Vikings were driving there. Well, they got the ball back to the Saints, and now the Saints are getting ready to punt the ball right back to them. So not much going on for this New Orleans Saints offense so far, but we'll continue to keep you up to date on that game as it comes down here. What do we have going on, Coop? Next game, we're looking at Buffalo-Baltimore, a game where two high top quarterbacks in DFS, two big plays, high game total, but weather kind of rearing its ugly head again in this one. We're expecting rain. We're expecting some wind. How much of an impact does it make for you?
Yeah, I mean, again, we got to keep an eye on it. Honestly, you got to watch the pregame, see what it looks like down there, because if you go back and think about the Bears 49ers game week 1, like the reports weren't that bad at first. The wind wasn't bad, but then when you watched the pregame, there was literal pooling on the ground, actual mud. And when it gets choppy like that, those are the things that change things. When the playing surface is brutal or when the wind is crazy. Now, as of now, I'm seeing the wind is like 14 miles an hour. Anything between 15 and 20 has an effect on the game. Anything over 20 miles an hour has a drastic effect. So keep an eye on that. Use it as a tiebreaker. Don't go a full tier different. Don't go too crazy. But if you're choosing between two guys and you can avoid this Bills Baltimore game, or you can avoid the Jacksonville Eagles game, I might consider it. I mean, in both those games, the over-under since it opened has come down quite a bit. I mean, I think this one's still at like 51, but it was at like 55.
Yeah, it's like 55. Yeah, it opened at like 55. Yeah. It's down to 50 now. We're looking at like 85 to 90% precipitation in Baltimore here. Winds 14 to 16 miles an hour. So something you got to at least watch there. Two mobile quarterbacks, though. I mean, they can get it done on the ground. If you have maybe a Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, I think you could probably play them today. Both of those guys have been getting carries, and then obviously J.K. Dobbins for Baltimore. You can start him. Feeling confident there. We talked about it. There is no Mark Andrews replacement. There is no Stephon Diggs replacement. You just kind of put you start those guys. But we have a question in chat right now. If you're starting Devonte Adams, Amari Cooper, or Gabe Davis, that one's pretty easy to me. You're starting Devonte Adams and Amari Cooper. So
can't go away from Amari Cooper right now. The guy's been a wagon last couple of weeks. Like the way he's playing, got to get him in there. He's all over the field too, underneath routes, intermediate routes, red zone. Like he's the guy right now. So got to get him. And the Raven, I mean, he's got a good matchup too. They got the Falcons.
Right.
So I mean, he might see some AJ Terrell.
Amari Cooper is one of my favorite DFS plays this week. I think in DraftKings he's like $6,500. That 6K range over on DraftKings today is like mint when it comes to wide receivers. So we got our friend Ann in the chat. She's got a couple questions for players that we've hit on in this game as well. First one, a PPR needs one. Singletary, Akers, or CEH today?
I mean, I'm starting Singletary. Devin Singletary, that's a John Impemba special, folks. He quietly has run the 5th most routes of any running back in the league.
Unexpected.
So, unexpected
value out of Singletary was his patch catching.
Exactly. So the first game, Zach Moss seemed like he had kind of carved out a little pass catching role, but Singletary's run away with it. James Cook has not developed so far into the player that's taking that role the way that we thought. So Singletary's going to be the every down back. The only thing that limits his upside is Josh Allen. But I mean, over those other guys who are clearly splitting, Darrell Henderson plays the pass downs and Jerick McKinnon plays the pass downs to the point where McKinnon played more snaps than CEH last week. So give me Singletary for sure in that matchup.
And it's funny that McKinnon played more snap because so far this season, all of CEH's value has come in the passing game where, he's gotten those are catching touchdowns there. So her other question, TJ Hawkinson or Evan Ingram this week? Coop, you're the Evan Ingram whisperer. So
no bigger Evan Ingram fan than me, but I got to go TJ Hawkinson here. It's just a matter of volume. They have nobody else. I will say that I liked it best when it was just Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown out. I don't think DJ Chark being out actually helps TJ Hawkinson. They don't run similar A-dot routes. ARSB and Swift run the underneath routes, which, kind of step on Hawkinson's shoes. DJ Chark being out there probably would have helped him just by stretching the field. We got to hope that somebody else can stretch the field, because if the defense just decides that Hawkinson's the only guy, he could be in for a rough day too now. So, but I'm still starting Hawkinson. The upside is too great.
I agree with you there. A couple questions over on the YouTube channel here. Reese Hall, Amari Cooper, Gabe Davis, and Miles Sanders. They need one for a flex.
Reese Hall, Amari Cooper, Gabe Davis, or Miles Sanders. Got to start Amari Cooper.
Yeah, I'm going Amari Cooper for sure there. Pollard, Javonte Williams, or Antonio Gibson in a PPR.
Yep, that's Daniel Hillman. Good dude. I would start Javonte Williams. Man, that is tough. Javonte has just not been what we thought he would be this year. He's splitting with Melvin, but I still like Javonte Williams.
I'm gonna go Javonte there as well. Some more questions of guys we've already touched on. So Josh Reynolds, Romeo Doubs, Juju Smith-Schuster, or Chris Godwin in a half PPR. Again, Godwin expected to play today, so we'll see what happens there.
So it's Josh Reynolds, Chris Godwin, Romeo Doubs,
or Juju
Juju. Man, Juju's been so disappointing.
Yeah, I don't think he's 100% healthy. You know, he was dealing with that injury going into the season. He had a good week 1, and then after that, he just either tough matchups or they themselves are not really. That offense is a little bit out of sync. And we wondered if that offense would look a little out of sync if there was no Tyreek Hill. Maybe that week 1 matchup was just kind of a mirage of what was to come with this offense.
Yeah, I don't know, John. Where are you leaning with these guys? It's hard. It would be, if everyone was healthy, it would obviously be Godwin. But
I may go with Josh Reynolds here. I'm not sold on Doubs yet. You talked about Juju, and it's not a great matchup for them either going up against Tampa Bay. It's a Godwin's or Reynolds play for me. The Patriots defense has actually been decent. I understand that last week they gave up like 30 points to Baltimore, but a lot of that was Lamar Jackson, and you have to play them differently than you play other quarterbacks. Rodgers, I don't think they're too worried about when it comes to sort of defending him per se. So, Doubs to me, I think could be in a tough spot there. So
I'm with you. Josh Reynolds.
Yeah. Elijah Moore. Cody wants to know our thoughts on Zach Wilson back. We talked about it. That he's run the most routes on that team, and he and Wilson have had good connections.
Yeah, and I think that, like, if you look at it, Joe Flacco, his quarterback rating is bottom 5. I think it's 4th from the bottom, and the guys at the bottom are barely even quarterbacks. We're talking like Justin Fields, who doesn't throw, Baker Mayfield, who's been terrible. So Flacco, despite the volume, has not been good. For guys like Elijah Moore, Corey Davis that are running higher A-dot routes, they don't need 50 target. They don't need the ball to be thrown 50 times. They need it to be thrown better. So I think that Zach Wilson is an upgrade for Elijah Moore, probably a downgrade for guys like Tyler Conklin, maybe the running backs who they really need the volume versus, catching a couple 20-yard passes, which is what you're hoping from Elijah Moore.
Right. We did just have a big play in this Minnesota game. Saints picked off Kirk Cousins at midfield. So turnover for New Orleans in this game. We'll continue to, at the end of the first quarter, we'll continue to monitor, obviously, this game as it happens. And we're going to keep breaking down these games. We talked about Romeo Doubs a minute ago. We have a question on him there, but we have New England versus Green Bay. Green Bay 9.5-point home favorites, a 39.5 game total. Brian Hoyer under center for New England. We talked about the running backs there for the Patriots, likely where the value is coming from in that offense today.
Yeah, who's excited for Brian Hoyer power football? Get ready, baby.
You know what? Listen, I'll say the one thing with Brian Hoyer is at least like he is experienced. So, and he's had spurts of minor success as a starting quarterback in the NFL. And nobody knows this Patriots offense probably better than Brian Hoyer, right? Like, and I know they changed the offense a little bit this year, but I mean, Brian Hoyer is basically the offensive coordinator, the offensive coach at this point in time. I have a little faith in Hoyer actually being able to, maybe move this football a little bit today.
I mean, at this point, Hoyer's been a backup in this league so long, he probably knows other teams' offenses better than some of the quarterbacks on those teams.
Right?
He's running enough scout, right? So, I'm interested to see who he likes because, like we saw with Cooper Rush coming in, he immediately went to Noah Brown because they practiced together. They had some timing routes that worked. I'm interested to see who that's going to be for Brian Hoyer. I mean, could be Devontae Parker, could be Hunter Henry, or it could come from deeper in the depth chart. Maybe because of the situation, he's been throwing the ball to Kendrick Bourne in practice all the time, and Kendrick Bourne comes out, has a game. You never know.
Yeah.
But uncertainty creates value, especially in DFS where you've got all these cheap guys. That you gotta want to lean into that uncertainty, see if you can hit big, because when you get down there, there's not a lot of upside.
Right.
But now with a new quarterback, there's newfound upside.
Yep. And Don has a question there: Akers, Dubs, or Burks in a full PPR?
I kind of like Trayvon Burks. Can't argue with a guy that ran 99% of the routes last week, 98, whatever it was, 29 of 30 routes. I think that's the way I'd go. Akers is kind of just an early down back at this point because Darrell Henderson's playing pass downs. And then, as we said, Romeo Doubs, kind of hard to trust a rookie. I mean, Burks is also a rookie, but give me the rookie that went in the first round over a guy like Doubs. I don't know, John.
Yeah, like I said, I'm curious to see how the snap share works with Watson active today. Does Doubs play 90%? I know Lazard's going to. Lazard has played 90% snaps since he's come back into their lineup. But where does the Doubs Watson split come in today? And you're right in chat there, Matt, talking about the Colts defense. They're a pretty strong defense. They're getting Leonard. They're also getting Buckner back in the middle as well. So it's going to be a pretty tough run for Tennessee, who we don't think is pretty good, which is why I'm so surprised it's just like a 3.5 point spread. It feels like it should be greater with the Colts at home, but that's where we're at there. So again, kind of hitting some of these questions here. Elijah Moore or Damien Pierce full PPR?
Elijah Moore, Damien Pierce, full PPR. I think I'm still going Damien Pierce. Just he's getting the volume. He's a starting back. He's clearly has that role now. Elijah Moore, we have hypothetical upside, which is always nice, but we don't know what it's going to look like with Zach Wilson. I don't know, John. You going the safe play with Pierce or the upside play with Moore?
No, I'm going to go with Pierce as well. Again, you can run on these Chargers defense. It's I think it's a good spot for him there. Then we have Bateman or Curtis Samuel.
Full PPR, non PPR.
They didn't say.
No. That's an important question. I think Curtis Samuel is like the definition of a full PPR only guy. Right, 10 targets, but only 48 yards. He's gotten 11, 9, 10 targets, but hasn't even cracked 90 yards. And then Bateman, I like this. If this was being played in a dome or being played in just normal weather, I would love Bateman this week. It's a perfect spot for him, but because of the weather situation, it gets a little dicey, especially for a guy who runs higher A-dot routes. So if it's full PPR, I go Curtis Samuel. If it's half or standard, go Bateman.
Yep, I'm with you there as well. Games that we touched upon again, non-PPR, Kareem Hunt or Curtis Samuel in a flex.
Bad format for both those guys, honestly.
I think I may lean Hunt here because he does run the football. He did have a rushing touchdown in week 1. So, they don't shy away from giving him his touches. So you could easily get 30 yards rushing, 30 yards receiving, and a score here out of Kareem Hunt today.
Yeah, go Kareem Hunt and then bet that over 9.5 yard rushing prop for Curtis Samuel. Hedge your bets there a little bit, Ken.
Yeah. Your boy Juwan Johnson with a big 13-yard catch. New Orleans driving now just outside the 20-yard line of this Minnesota Vikings, New Orleans Saints London game here, just after just the start of the second quarter here. So we'll continue to watch this one. New Orleans just got the ball back on an interception by Tyrann Mathieu there against off of Kirk Cousins. So we'll see if the Saints go in for a score or not. Obviously, we still have a lot more to get to in this game. What are your thoughts on the Packers running backs here? New England's defense has been pretty good this year. Again, outside of that last week against the Ravens, where it was really just the Lamar Jackson show. He ran for over 100 yards. Defense is scrambling around, trying to spy on him. Guys are getting open. Shouldn't really be the case here today, but the running backs in Green Bay, Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. Thoughts on them?
Yeah, let me just to backtrack real quick. Let me just say, thank God Juwan Johnson did something today, because I would have been tarred and feathered if he did nothing over on the Twitter sphere. Instead, I'll probably just get beat up, but at least he did something. So we're not crazy. He's leading the team in yards right now, but it's pretty ugly. As for the run game, I'm starting Aaron Jones every single week. Like your team would have to be an absolute wagon to not start Aaron Jones. I don't care about the split. He's playing more pass downs. He's playing more run downs. It's like the reverse of what we used to see with Jamal Williams, where like Aaron Jones used to play more rundowns and then they'd split the pass work. What's happening here is Aaron Jones is playing the most pass work and then they're kind of splitting the run work. I'm okay with that in an offense like this.
Yeah.
Give me Aaron Jones all day. Start him wherever you have him.
Yep. A question that we missed that kind of hit a game we've talked about previously: Cordarrelle Patterson or Drake London today? Cordarrelle Patterson, by the way, is questionable. You're going to have to watch that one. But assuming Patterson plays, would you rather him or London?
I think I'd rather Patterson. I mean, he's been used essentially like a bell cow back. Like the Browns do have some decent corners, so Drake London could run into a bit of trouble today. So I would go with Cordarrelle Patterson, assuming he's good to go.
Yeah, if Patterson's healthy, I think you have to go there. I mean, who would have thought we have 2 weeks of over 110 yards rushing from Cordarrelle Patterson through 3 weeks of the season? I don't think many would have placed a bet on that one here. We have Denver, Las Vegas, and we have a question in the chat here: Russell Wilson or Trevor Lawrence? Given the weather for me, Coop, against in a tough matchup for Philadelphia as well for Jacksonville, I know Wilson hasn't been great, but I think you got to go there.
Yeah, you can't go away from Russell Wilson, not just yet, but I would definitely hold on to Trevor Lawrence. He's looked pretty good.
You're not letting go of Lawrence.
Yeah, you hold on to both of them. Give Russell Wilson one more go here, and if not, then it's Trevor Lawrence time.
Yep. Las Vegas 2.5-point home favorites here, 45.5 game total. Hunter Renfro's out. Are we believing in Mac Hollins?
Hollins. I mean, as long as Renfro's out, he's interesting. It's just you got to remember they still have Devonte Adams. They still have Darren Waller. Very few guys in this league have games with 17, 18 targets, and Devonte Adams and Darren Waller both have multiple on their career. And, this season, Devonte Adams already has one. So just know that you're starting a guy who is at best the third best pass catcher on the team.
Yeah, he's just. I think what's been interesting with him is just the usage of late. Obviously, the last 2 weeks. Last week, 8 catches, 11 targets, 158 yards and a score. Week before that, 5 catches, 8 targets for 66 yards against Arizona. So all of a sudden, he's just becoming a big part of this team's offense. He's a hot waiver wire commodity pickup. He's cheap in DFS as well. So people are sort of buying into, I think, the Mac Hollins hype here. We have
the thing with Hollins is that his usage hasn't changed in terms of playing. Like week 1, he played the second most snaps behind Devonte Adams, more than Waller, more than Renfro. Like he's been out there. It's just now that Renfro's out, there's targets available for him. So he's an interesting start as long as Renfro's out. Once Renfro comes back, maybe not so interesting.
Yep. We currently have at least as I'm looking at it, a 3rd and goal for Minnesota for the Saints here on the Minnesota 4. So we'll see if the Saints can punch this one in or not. And we do have a touchdown catch from Chris Olave. I know he was a hot topic of question earlier this morning. What do we do with Chris Olave? Do we play him? Do we not play him? Touchdown Chris Olave on a 4-yard catch for him from Andy Dalton. Olave now 2 catches, 15 yards, and a score.
Gotta love that, John, when you get instant feedback on start sits that we did on this show. We said we're starting Olave wherever we have him. It's a perfect situation for him. He might not be blowing up, but you at least got now you're playing with house money, right?
All right. Yep. So Olave, after some big weeks, the last couple of weeks, immediately producing as the number 1 wide receiver with Michael Thomas and out, Jameis Winston out, Dalton going to the rookie here for a 4-yard touchdown pass. So assuming they make this extra point, we're now 7 squared, 8 minutes, a little bit 9 minutes to go in the second quarter here. We'll continue to follow along with this London game as it continues. And of course, stay with the Bettor Sports Network all day long. After Coop and I are off, we have the Front Yard Fantasy Show with Simon, Joey, and JL from 11 to 1. Better Zone with Corey, Adam, and Tom from 1 to 5. And Better Zone again from 5 to 8 with Holden Kushner and Pilar Lastra. And the only way to be part of these shows, of course, is to download the Bettor Sports Network app in your iTunes store, Google Play Store. Subscribe, join the show, get in, ask your questions. If you want to ask your questions live, you can call in, get on the show with Coop and I, get on the show with Front Yard Fantasy, or to the Better Zone and, talk about it, talk about your games, talk about your teams, and get your questions answered live on the show. Best way to interact with us, best way to guarantee that your questions get answered is to download the app, get in the show. We'll see your questions. We'll answer them as they come across, and you can come on and have a little fun with Coop and I.
Yeah, jump in, hang out with us, and if if you enjoy the show, whether you're on YouTube or on the Bettor Sports app, if we've helped you with any start sits, if you started Chris Olave and he just scored a touchdown, do us a big favor, download the app and give us a 5-star review. It helps people see the app, helps other people come and find the show and hang out with us. So do us that favor, we'd really appreciate it. And thank you for tuning in, man. I really, it means the world for us that you guys would show up this morning and hang out with us. So thank you very much for that, guys.
Yep, so for sure. Apparently that touchdown catch was under review, is officially upheld. So we do have the score there. So it is a 7-all game. Always a little scary when you have to go to the review booth.
Thank God, because I just asked for those Chris Olave reviews. We might have started getting 1-star reviews if the touchdown got called back.
The opposite, yeah. If that ended up being a no-go, I would have felt pretty bad hyping up everybody in the chat who started Chris Olave there. So So we have another question here. Elijah Moore, Matt Collins, or Richie James. Pick 2. It's a half PPR.
That's the situation where I am starting Elijah Moore, just because both him and Matt Collins and I guess Richie James now are playing all the snaps, but Elijah Moore is the number 1 wideout on his team. He's the focal point of that offense, and I do trust him to put together a big game. Matt Collins maybe has the highest upside because we saw him do a bunch of crazy stuff, but again, all things go according to plan. It's Devonte Adams, and to be honest, after Devonte Adams made those comments last week about how disappointed he was with the team, I can't see them not force feeding the ball to Devonte Adams, because he's saying he's tired of losing, and if they don't give him the ball, he's going to be more upset. It's easier to feel okay about a loss if you got 15 targets and you were given the opportunity. So I think this week he gets a huge opportunity to win for the team. So Devonte Adams for me. If you're going to go with a chalk wide receiver in DFS, I like him a lot this week.
Yeah, again, he's one of the top priced guys, and what we talk a lot about when it comes to DFS in particular is the key to stacking your quarterback with a wide receiver. And some of these top guys like Josh Allen or like a Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews is the most expensive tight end. Stephon Diggs is the most expensive wide receiver. It's difficult sometimes to stack the 2 top priced guys and then build a lineup that goes around it. Obviously, we've seen a lot of success with Allen this season, with Diggs this season. You can certainly make it work, but it only works if the right value plays are on the board for you to sort of build around those lineups. Otherwise, you're putting in a bunch of guys that don't really have a lot of value into those lineups, and you're hoping that they just kind of come through for you. When you're playing Derek Carr, he's so cheap this year, you can fit in Devonte Adams and still build a solid lineup around him.
Not to mention this week, like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, that game's supposed to be raining, 15-mile-an-hour winds. You're trying to get Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown in there, again, raining, 15-mile-an-hour winds. Can't rain in the Dome in Las Vegas. Doesn't even rain in the desert anyway. So that game, if you want to make that stack, it's a cheap stack, and you don't have to worry about remnants of a hurricane messing it up for you.
And that's one of the reasons why I am looking more at Justin Herbert today in DFS, even without Keenan Allen, is the fact that they're in a dome, they're facing Houston. If you're looking at that top price tier of quarterbacks, the top 3 guys are all dealing with weather potential impacts there. And then you got Herbert there. I know he's dealing with the rib cartilage and whatnot, but again, this still feels like a matchup where he should be able to take advantage of the spot that they're in, the fact that they're playing in the dome, the controlled temperature there, the controlled weather impact that game would be having if they were playing outdoors isn't a factor there. So when you're looking at these top price quarterbacks in DFS and you're making your decision, while Herbert maybe has a little bit of a question mark around him, he used full go of practice all week. He said he looked good. I'm going to believe the coaches, going to believe the reports in those matters. I'm going to look for a bounce back from Mike Williams. They have Gerald Everett. They have Austin Eckler. Josh Palmer's catching touchdowns. Like, this offense is fit enough for Justin Herbert this week against Houston to have a lot of success. And I'm hopeful that people will take those shots on the quarterbacks with Allen, Jackson, and Hurts. And the weather is an impact. And then they maybe lower some of the rostership there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I look at that game, the one thing I will say is that, you might if you're going to go there and stack up Herbert, you might as well put in either Pierce or Brandon Cooks, because you need Houston to do something, right? For the Chargers to reach their full potential. So if I'm stacking that game, I'm throwing somebody in from the Texans, because they need a little pushback, or else it's just going to be you're not going to be able to get the maximum
unless they just go out there and they score like 3 early scores or something like
and just
that.
steamroll them. Yeah, but the way you get the maximum return there is if Davis Mills pushes back a little bit, turns it into a little, kind of forces the Chargers to put up 30, 40 points. So
and no Joey Bosa for the Chargers defense here. So maybe that does make an impact today and kind of sees how Houston can move. I don't have a lot of success in faith in Houston's offense, but Cooks had been seeing double-digit targets every week. Pierce is starting to step up as well. Andon has a question: Russ Wilson or Jared Goff today?
Russ, man, you can't start. Goff doesn't even have any weapons. He's throwing to Josh. Goff. If he had Amon-Ra and Swift and GJ Chark, has been a good start, but you're gonna start him with Josh Reynolds and Quintez Cephas, Khalif Raymond. I don't know. It's not super exciting to me. I'll start Russ there.
Yeah, I'm agree with you there. I'm going to go with Russ as well. YouTube chat wants to know: are we worried about AJ Brown being your wide receiver 1 today, given the weather? Kinda, but again, what's your alternative, right? Who are you playing over AJ Brown today? I guess is the question.
Those are the decisions. Those are the decisions you can make in an 8-team league or DFS, right? Outside of that,
if you have a fringe guy, I guess there could be some conversations on spots, today. Would you start Noah Brown or AJ Brown today if you say you had that decision to be made today?
AJ Brown. It's got to be way higher up the ladder for me to move AJ Brown out. I mean, for me, we're talking. Would you go? Well, Christian Kirk plays in the same game. Would you go Cortland Sutton or AJ Brown?
Sutton, yeah.
Sutton,
as bad as that offense has looked, Sutton's actually been very good.
So if you got guys guys like Sutton, Mike Evans, actual real time players, then you make that move. But I'm not doing it for a DJ Moore or a Tyler Lockett or anybody in that range. I can't go down that far.
I agree with you. And let's just talk about that one, right? I mean, we've talked about, can this offense be that bad, right? Denver, they're facing Las Vegas again today. We've talked about Las Vegas and their struggles, losing to Tennessee last week. We've sort of, Nathaniel Hackett looks maybe a little bit out of his depth at this point. This offense has looked dysfunctional outside of week 1, where at the end they came back against Seattle. The running backs are split. Judy's coming off of his little injury there. He didn't miss a week, but he didn't look great last week. Albert O is getting the 3rd ranked most snaps of the tight ends on that roster last week. He was outsnapped by the other 2 tight ends. Sutton's been good, but how are you how much faith are you putting in this Denver offense here?
Yeah, I mean, Albert O is off my radar. He did run the most routes, but they were using him the way teams would use back when it was Cameron Brate and OJ Howard. They're using him like that, or Anthony Ferkser and Johnny Smith, where he plays 24 snaps, which is half the team snaps, and he runs routes on 23. They're literally just taking him out of the game on run plays, which tells me they don't trust his run blocking. They're using 2 big clunky dudes named Eric Saubert and Eric Tomlinson instead. Those dudes played even more snaps. It looked like they wanted to get down in the mud and play 49ers football against the 49ers. Hopefully this week they decide to play Raiders football against the Raiders and it's an actual shootout, So, but you can't trust them right now. Sutton and Judy, I do like, especially going to go up against this Raiders team. But it's a little too much splitting, and I think a little too much getting cute from this team. As you alluded to, it's been a mess. I feel like every snap for this Denver offense has been with 1 second left on the play clock. Russ is out there directing traffic he's wearing a high-vi vest. I'm like, just call a play, get up there, and run the play. Let's get some of that going before we start, directing traffic here.
Yeah, it should be pretty simple when you have 2 pretty talented wide receivers and a really good running back in the backfield to call an offense and make it work. But so far, that hasn't been the case in Denver there. Obviously, the Raiders side, we talked about it. Matt Collins, you're playing if you have him. Adams, we know, and Wall are the top guys there. Any interest in Josh Jacobs at all today?
I mean, so I was worried about them splitting the backfield and having a pass catching back. We saw a little bit of that last week with Brandon Bolden, but Jacobs is basically getting the bulk of the work. So, I'm still using Jacobs wherever I have him. Wherever I don't have enough, if I'm deciding between Jacobs and somebody like Kareem Hunt or Tony Pollard, I got to go Jacobs, right? So for me, I need to have another guy who's playing a full role to start him over Jacobs. Do you have any concern, John?
I have a little bit, but not really. It's more so that just that the offense hasn't been doing a lot, right? So it's like you have him in there, but what is he giving you? Like 7 fantasy points? That's kind of the way I'm looking at it with him. There's just it's just a low ceiling, low floor at the moment with how they're utilizing, especially without the passing work there. Nicholas Hartley over on YouTube wants to know he needs 2 out of Jeff Wilson, Gabe Davis, and Josh Reynolds today.
I mean, you're definitely starting Jeff Wilson. He's been the guy. That's a hot hand offense, and he's getting all the snaps. And then it's Gabe Davis has been banged up. So I think I'm going with it was Josh Reynolds was the other option, or what was the other option?
Yeah, it was it was Gabe Davis,
Jeff Wilson, Josh Reynolds.
Jeff Wilson and Josh Reynolds, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going Jeff Wilson and Josh Reynolds. Don't like the usage. Gabe Davis hasn't looked great, and I'm also not loving the fact that he's banged up.
We got a question. Should you start Dubs? It all depends on who else you would start instead, right?
Yeah,
like
we need to see what the other one is.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say if you let us know who else you would play instead of Romeo Dubs, and we'll tell you whether or not we would start Dubs.
Yeah,
I don't mind Romeo Dubs here. Again, they're down to really 3 receivers. We don't know if Dubs has officially leaped over Christian Watson there, who's expected to be active for today. So between him and Russell Gage, yeah, I'm starting Romeo Dubs over Russell Gage. Again, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Mike Evans are all expected active today. Obviously, with Evans coming back from the suspension, Julio Jones and Godwin coming back from their injuries, I don't know where that leaves Gage for today. So I'm going to be going Romeo Dubs over him for today.
Agreed. And Russell Gage has also been banged up himself. He was questionable. He's going to play, it seems, but you don't need to go there with Gage.
No, I agree with you. Let's get into that one. Kansas City, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is giving a 1.5 here. It's a 45.5 game total. Again, the Chiefs' offense has looked a little bit out of sync at times. The running back situation, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the number 1 guy, but he hasn't had double-digit carries yet this season. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is questionable. Sky Moore's barely seeing the field. Juju Smith-Schuster's been inconsistent and banged up. Mecole Hardman's been banged up. It's basically been Travis Kelce or bust, it feels like, for this Mahomes and this offense. Now they're going up against a tough Tampa Bay defense. Like, how are you reading this game for today?
Yeah, I mean, now looking back, we realize how good we had it, right? Like this Chiefs, where it was, you could just sit there and be like, you're starting Kelce, you're starting Tyreek Hill, you're starting Patrick Mahomes. That's it. Those are the good days, right? Now it's you're starting Travis Kelce and you're sitting there, flipping coins, like digging through trash. And as we've seen, it turns out Tyreek Hill is actually very good on his own, regardless of who's quarterback, regardless of if it's Teddy Bridgewater, apparently, right? Like he's just good. So that's the problem we run into here. I still think I trust Juju most out of these guys just because he's playing the most, he's getting the targets, but it's hard to get excited about what he's given you so far.
Yeah. For DFS, I actually like it because back in the day, it was struggling. Do I stack Mahomes with Hill or Kelce? Now you just play him with Kelce. It eliminates the other option there. It makes it a little bit easier to decipher. Are you playing? I mean, I guess, are you playing CEH today against Tampa Bay?
No, because Jerick McKinnon has carved out that pass role, and this is a tough defense to run against still. So it's hard to start a guy that's skews running against a team that is good against the run. So I'm trying not to start him if I can avoid it. He's now in that same group as like Melvin Gordon and Tony Pollard and Kareem Hunt, where it's like if you have anybody that's playing the full role and has better upside, you got to go with that guy.
Yep, I agree with you there as well. Tampa Bay on the other side of things, Leonard Fournette is just the only running back that touches the football on that team.
Right.
Have to be pretty. What am I saying here? Pretty solid with him as your running back choice this week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he even kind of came out and was like, hey, you other guys are going to have to step up a little bit. Basically, even mentioned them by name, Rachaad White and Keyshawn Vaughn. And was like, you guys got to step up and play a little bit because, he played, what was he? He played 49 of 56 snaps, whatever it was. He's all but 6. He's just out there every play. You got to
Which
love
is
the
why
fantasy.
I thought it was hilarious for all the Rashard White hype again. We were doing our podcast where I was talking about. I'm like, stop buying into the rookie running back hype in Tampa Bay. How many years in a row is this going to happen where they're like, oh, this is going to be the guy? It's like, no, Tom Brady doesn't play with rookies, man. Leonard Fournette is going to be the guy that gets on the field the entire time. That's why I was targeting Leonard Fournette in a lot of my drafts this year, where I was able to get him, especially in best ball, because that I just knew that he was going to be the workhorse. As long as he can stay healthy, he's going to be out there.
How many of these guys is Tampa Bay going to acquire, right? Like, you draft Keyshawn Vaughn, you don't use him. You draft Rashad White, you don't use him. Maybe they should trade for Justice Hill too, just so they can have them all, right? Like, what are they doing?
And they signed Giovanni Bernard, and they don't use him either. So they're just like,
I don't know what they're doing, man. Leonard
Fournette,
Fournette, sometimes
Tom Brady is just like, yeah, he ain't it, and then they go back to the guy that it is. So
right, it's like Leonard Fournette just is the guy. He's the best in all phases. And when you're Tom Brady, like, Tom Brady's he's not gonna let you leave the field if you're the best. Like, if Tom Brady's out there and you're the best pass blocker on the team, he's not letting you leave the field.
Right.
So I think that's the situation that's going on here.
Yep. Better Boss in chat says we know Fournette's going to get hurt. We don't know Fournette is going to get hurt.
But Better Boss.
We don't like
maybe not wrong, dude.
Here.
Yeah. We don't know. We can never know, but maybe not wrong. He's already been banged up a little bit.
Historically speaking, probably correct. We got one for flex: Christian Kirk, Deontay Johnson, or Jerry Jeudy.
That's a tough one, because for me, Christian Kirk is a guy that, right now you can't go away from him, but they are playing in one of those weather games, and you have real interesting options with Deontay Johnson and Jerry Jeudy. For me, I'm either starting Kirk or Johnson. That's where I'm at. I know you love Jerry Jeudy, but he's been banged up himself, and he didn't play the full game last week. He only played like 40 or 60 something snaps. Whereas Christian Kirk is, the focal point, and he's doing really well. I think I'm starting Christian Kirk, but I could be convinced to start Deontay Johnson. Where are you at?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Deontay Johnson here against the Jets as well. Kirk I can't do because of the weather. The weather is just too big of a factor for me in that game there. Plus, listen, how good has Philly's defense been all season? Now you're going to add another element to sort of help them in this game as well. I'm going to have to knock down Kirk there. I'm going to go to Deontay.
That's the thing with Philly, is that it's not even a situation where you're like, oh, they have Jeff Okudah. He might cover Lockett. He might cover Metcalf. They have Darius Slay and James Bradbury. There's really no easy way out on that team.
You got any underdog over-unders to play? Maybe a little bit there. Big Bun in chat. I can take a quick peek, and I'll throw some to you at the end of the show. I do have prize picks though. Some of those prop plays are carrying over there, so you can check out the prize picks are over on Fantasy Alarm. I don't think I did any unders though. I think I gave 2 overs for today's pick. So go check that out over on Fantasy Alarm YouTube and on fantasyalarm.com for the prize picks power play of the day. I kind of already told you one of them. I'm going Dallas Cowboys over 3.5 sacks. I think that is just a strong play given the matchup there against Washington and their inability to protect Carson Wentz for the season there. So
give a quick update on this game that's ongoing right now. Justin Jefferson getting going finally a little bit. Just had a nice big catch there. He's got 4 for 42, so not what you were hoping, but could be worse. Adam Thielen 5 for 66. That's another one where you're playing with house money if you start.
For a first half to have that kind of production, like, you're rolling already.
You're good. Yeah. Like, with the way Thielen's been, 5 for 66 in a full PPR, 11 points, I'm feeling okay even if that ended that way. Dalvin Cook, 8 carries, 25 yards. That's 3 yards a carry. Alexander Madison, not much better with 2 for 2, but Madison does have the 15-yard touchdown. Dalvin also throws down 2 catches for 10. Kirk Cousins, 14 for 19, 150 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. On the other side of the ball, one of those weird days for the Saints. Dalton is 8 of 9 passing, but they're not getting the first downs. They're not moving the sticks. He only has 53 yards passing. So really dinking and dunking here. 6 for 23 rushing for Mark Ingram. Latavius Murray, 3 for 9. Taysom Hill doing what we expected, which is not really doing anything. He's got 2 carries. Yeah, 2 carries for 6 yards. That's just a touchdown coin flip, which at tight end, maybe. But like, you got to give yourself a better chance at upside, Chris Olave. And then, of course, when you only have 53 passing yards, you're not going to get much from the pass catchers. Chris Olave has a touchdown, 15 yards. And then beyond that, nobody really has more than a catch or 2. Nobody has more than 15 yards. So not really worth talking about right now.
Yep. Vikings again driving right now just after the 2-minute warning on the 11-yard line. Devin Cook just got up an 8-yard run. When Coop and I get back here, we'll wrap up our game previews looking at this Rams 49ers game. We'll continue to watch this Viking Saints, and we'll finish it up answering your questions. Start sick, get in the YouTube, get in the chat, download the Bettor Sports app, get in the show, sign up, join, get your questions in, maybe call in, join us live, and we'll break it down for you. Is the Game Day Playbook presented by Bettor Sports Network.
Make bets and follow your fantasy team while you buy, sell, and trade collectibles in real time. Only on Bettor Sports Network.
Surely. Kickers never retire, I think. They just continue playing for all eternity. Like, there's only ever been 30 NFL kickers.
Yeah, they're always readily available too, it seems. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they just get called up. They're like, you kicked for us 10 years ago, right? Why don't you
run it back?
I imagine
Graham
every
Gano.
single kicker that gets the call is on a high school football field somewhere just practicing field goals after hours. Like it's like 9 p.m. and they're out there just the local high school kicking field goals, and the phone rings. They get a call and they're like, yeah, I'm ready. I've been practicing for this.
I have an amazing kicker story if you guys have a second. Dude.
I got a couple.
The number one all-time field goal kicker is Adam Vinatieri. The next two guys are Morton and Gary Anderson, right? Gary Anderson was a dude from like South Africa that just played rugby and soccer. He just could absolutely boot the ball, right? They bring him over and he does like a tryout and he's just absolutely crushing the ball. And all these colleges are like, dude, we want you to come kick field goals for us. And he goes, I don't even want to play football. He goes, I want to play soccer. He goes, I want to play soccer. He goes, so if I can come to your school and play soccer, I'll also, in the fall, I'll kick for the football team. And Syracuse was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, you're on the soccer team. Like, come on. And he went to Syracuse to play soccer, but also kick field goals. And then he ended up being a top 3 point scorer in the NFL all the time.
That's ridiculous.
And his answer to recruiters was, I don't want to play football. I'll do it in my spare time.
Yeah. He's like, you got a spot for me on the soccer team? Syracuse is like, yeah, we got a spot for you.
We don't even care about our soccer team.
We don't even care.
We totally have that spot.
Right? They had to like cobble together a soccer team. Like, this guy's the captain.
Oh my God. It's like Accepted, the movie, but they just like had to throw together a whole fake soccer team.
Somehow they still got Justin Long.
Right, yeah. Like, Adam Sandler's the coach. And dude, it's imagine they win the national championship. That's a movie, dog. Yeah.
Boom!
Someone call up Disney. Yeah, we just wrote a movie for you, Disney. This has Disney sports movie written all over. I'm borderline crying right here just thinking about this movie right now.
Dude, the story gets even crazier. Like, I should have looked it up again, but like it was like a high school coach that went and found him, and then that high school coach ended up being somebody crazy famous that like coached for the Rams.
Stay tuned for sports. Talk about your picks, your fantasy teams, and your sports collectibles on Bettor Sports Network.
The Game Day Playbook, presented by FantasyAlarm.com.
Welcome back in, everybody. Game Day Playbook here, presented by Fantasy Alarm, breaking down Week 4 preview here, getting you up ready for roster lock, getting everything going on, top news stories, injuries of the day, following along with this game over in London. Minnesota Vikings, we last left you were driving. Coop, they weren't able to punch it in. They settled for a field goal here. 10-7 Minnesota with a minute to go before halftime. Again, stay with the channel all day long. Following us today, we have the Front Yard Fantasy Show with Simon, Joey, and JL from 11 to 1. From 1 to 5, we have Bettor Zone with Corey, Adam, and Tom. And then again, 5 to 8, Bettor Zone with Holden Kushner and Pilar Lastra. Got to download the app to join the show. Got to get involved with today and win with the Bettor Zone, man. It's no win with the Bettor networks. Coop. There's really no better time than now to join.
Get in here. And all week long, we're having fun. We have the Front Yard Fantasy Show, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., playing games, having nonsense, dude. Good times. Those guys are coming on next. JL and Simon, the guys from my morning show, they have a fun time. They'll have Joey Wright with them, who's hilarious. So make sure you stay tuned in with us. I'm probably going to pop in the chat, hang out there a little bit too, because I like having fun. I like smashing that fun button. So hang out with us.
Nothing wrong with getting in and having some fun on a Sunday. That is for sure. Coop, final game that we got to preview here. It's the the Rams versus the 49ers. 49ers are giving 1.5 here, 42.5 total. Does it surprise you at all that the 49ers are a 1.5 point home favorite against the Rams?
A little bit. Yeah, this is another one of those ones where, my instincts are to say that the Rams should be favorites, but then it always boils back to what does Vegas know that we don't?
Right.
I mean, it is a home game. The 49ers are a very tough defense, probably arguably one of the best defenses. So, this game probably will be the type of game that they say it is, where it's not, not a big shootout. So, I don't know. I wouldn't. This is one that I'm not betting it myself.
The 49ers lost to the Broncos. Their offense had absolutely nothing going last week.
They lost to the Bears.
Right, lost to the Bears. Garoppolo has looked great. I mean, it feels like the Rams should win this one, but I'm a little surprised to see the 1.5. Well, we talk about it all the time with Jimmy G now at quarterback. At least you kind of can know who to trust in this offense, and the guys where they slot in their roles: Jeff Wilson, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. Those are the guys, right? You put them in your lineups, and I think you can rely on them.
Yeah, I think you do. I mean, I'm starting them where I can. It's just, the 49ers are one of those teams. It's like if this is an MMA match, the 49ers are that team that just wants to bring it to the ground, right? Like they want to slow it down. They want to run it. They want to do end arounds with Deebo, and they want to beat you with good defense. So I think that's why this game has the over under it does, not because of what the Rams want to do, but because of what the 49ers want to do. So, yeah, but you can't go away from those guys. You can't not start George Kittle, right?
No, you're right. That's what I'm saying. You know who to play. You have to throw them in your lineup, and at least the running backs, like Jeff Wilson's guy getting the football. It's not really anybody else. Mason's not cutting in there. Marlon Mack isn't cutting in there. Like it's a Jeff Wilson backfield, so pretty secure there. The Ram side, I guess the only question is Akers and Henderson, how that plays out, and then how much do we trust in Allen Robinson right now?
Yeah, I mean, so Allen Robinson, I'm interested in the bounce back. Obviously, you start Cooper Kupp. Akers, he skews, again, those are two guys where you start them as necessary, where you have to, because neither one has the full role. And we saw Big Bun in there asking about underdog over-under plays. I would be willing to go under on either one of the Tyler Higbee props, 4 receptions or 41.5 yards. I don't think he's as good as he's been, and this is one of the best defenses against the tight end. So this is a situation where exactly what Tyler Higbee does, this defense is good at countering it, and he's not very good in contested catch situations or in situations where he has to beat his guy man to man. So I could see Tyler Higbee going out and having 1, maybe 2 catches today. So I would take the under on both those props for him. And I know it's more fun to bet overs, but that one to me jumped out as, why are there all these tight ends where the over-under is 2-3 receptions, and then Tyler Higbee is, I know he's playing a lot of snaps, but he's just not a.
What's the Tyler Conklin prop? That's what I want to know today. What do we got?
Tyler Conklin at go under on Tyler Conklin too. They're not going to throw. If they throw 50 times again, that would be insane. But it could. I mean, it could happen, but probably not.
Right. A couple questions in chat. One pertaining to the game we're talking about. Joe Vila wants to know: CEH, Jeff Wilson, Ramondre Stevenson, Juju, or Akers. And a flex. Oh, Metcalf is in there too. Flexing Metcalf, CEH, Wilson, Stevenson, Juju, or Akers. How are you leaning there?
It's either Metcalf or Jeff Wilson for me. I'm pretty confident in Jeff Wilson. I mean, I like anytime that I can get a running back that's playing the full role, I like to start him. Metcalf is the other option. The thing is, you run into a bit of a coin flip with Metcalf because Jeff Okudah, the cornerback for the Lions, was a rookie last year, missed like the whole season. He's been shut down, like locked the block down on Justin Jefferson. Devonta Smith didn't catch a pass, but my prediction is that he covers the flanker. That's what he's been doing so far. Like Adam Thielen plays split end, Justin Jefferson plays flanker. AJ Brown plays split end, Devonta Smith plays flanker. So I think Tyler Lockett could be the one that gets locked down today, but I'm not willing to risk it just in case. I'll start Jeff Wilson.
Yep. We have another question here. Pick 2, Michael Carter, Josh Palmer, Zay Jones.
Oh, man. Michael Carter splitting a role. Josh Palmer has been pretty good with Keenan Allen.
I'm definitely playing Josh Palmer. I think because of the weather, we got to go Carter and Palmer here.
Yeah. Zay Jones is, playing in a hurricane.
Yeah, plus tough defense against Philly. And then Isaiah McKenzie or Josh Reynolds in a half PPR.
I like Josh Reynolds. Man. McKenzie, he didn't even play the full snap share when Gabe Davis was out. He still split it with James Crowder. And 40 snaps looks good. Like last week, they both played 40 snaps. When you play 91 snaps like the Bills did last week, they're not going to do 91 this week.
No, probably not. Especially again, another game where there's some wind, some rain that's potentially impacting that game between Baltimore and Buffalo today. Could make it a little bit difficult. Reynolds had a good week last week, and now I guess he's the number one wide receiver in that offense today. So, outside of that and Hawkinson, we're looking at some of the chalk plays here. Do you think Hawkinson is a good chalk or a bad chalk play, Coop?
Yeah, I think that he has kind of become the bad chalk. He was a sneaky good chalk when it was like, everyone was kind of questionable. Now I think everyone's going to be so heavily on it, and he's just not that good of a player in a vacuum to carry this team when they have nothing else.
Yeah.
Like I said, I would have liked it better if DJ Chark was playing. So I think Hawkinson actually ends up being a little bit of bad. I have him in my DFS article because, he's a chalk.
I think the good pivot off him is Gerald Everett. Everett's 4K, Hawkinson's 4,100. If everybody's playing Hawkinson today, you can play Everett with no Keenan Allen. Guys had 16 targets in 2 weeks. So
right, exactly.
I think that's a way to go there. Minnesota kicked the field goal ahead of halftime, so it's 13-7 in that game now. Again, kind of recapping first half stats. Kirk Cousins, 16 of 23, 156 yards with 1 touchdown and an interception. Dalvin Cook, 10 for 34. Alexander Madison, 2 carries, for 2 yards. Adam Thielen, 5 for 66. Justin Jefferson, 5 for 42. Irv Smith, 3 for 23. Madison does have a 15-yard touchdown catch. Dalvin Cook, 2 catches for 10 yards. On the same side of things, Andy Dalton, 8 of 9, 53 yards and a touchdown. Not much of the passing yards there, though. Mark Ingram, 6 for 23. Latavius Murray, 3 for 9. Taysom Hill, 2 for 6 rushing. Chris Olave leading the receivers, 2 catches for 15 yards and the touchdown. Juwan Johnson, a catch for 13 yards. Adam Trotman, a catch for 12. Jarvis Landry, 2 for 7. And Mark Ingram, 2 for 6. Wraps up our first half stats there for this Vikings and Saints game. We did have a question earlier about some over-unders. You kind of gave the unders on those tight ends. A couple of overs that I like for today. CeeDee Lamb over 62.5 receiving yards against Washington for today. Amari Cooper over 63.5 receiving yards against Atlanta. I like Mike Williams, 59.5 yards receiving against Houston. I know he's been shut down in 2 to 3 weeks, but the other week he didn't. He went off against Kansas City. Not Kansas City, but we'll see if they can go ahead and get that going against Houston. And then Michael Pittman, 71.5 receiving yards. He's gone over that in all 3 weeks. All 2 weeks that he's played. He gets his matchup today at home. So I like that one over 71.5 receiving. So those are a couple of receiving yards. I also like Reese Hall over 38.5 yards rushing for today as well. I think that given the weather, I think they kind of overtake that one against Pittsburgh.
I'll give you one that I think is kind of a sneaky one, easy to root for and easy to hit if it does it, is that Paris Campbell is only at 20 yards. Michael Pittman played 44 of 45 pass plays last week. Paris Campbell played 40 of 45. You can't play that much and do so little and continue. So I think this week he's either going to take a huge step back and not play, or he's going to hit that over. I mean, it's like you
just one catch for him too. He's kind of a downfield guy. So
exactly. Even Jalen Guyton in his legendary all exercise team season was routinely throwing down 20 or 30 yards. 25 yards is an extremely disappointing day, but you hit the over on that stupid line. So I'm doing it with Paris Campbell.
Right. 2 quick questions here, Coop. We got a full PPR flex: Jeff Wilson, Rashard Penny, Ramondre Stevenson.
Jeff Wilson.
Standard league: Sutton or Damien Pierce.
Sutton. Can't go away from Sutton.
I'm with you on both of those. Again, stick with the Bettor Sports Network throughout the day. Coming up after us, we have Front Yard Fantasy with Simon, Joey, and JL from 11 to 1, 1 to 5. Better Zone, Corey, Adam, and Tom, and 5 to 8. Better Zone, Holden, Kushner, and Pilar Lastra. Big injury news of the day of Detroit missing Chark, Swift. We also have for Tampa Bay, we're going to see Chris Godwin and Julio Jones likely coming back for them as well. So got to stay with the station all day long. Week 4 action kicking off halftime as well in that Vikings and that Saints game, 13-7 for Minnesota. Coop, it's been fun breaking down Week 4 with you here. Got to make sure we follow everybody. This is the Game Day Playbook on the Bettor Sports Network, presented by Fantasy Alarm.